Chapter 1. Holy Spirit Village. As the beginner's village in Douluo's doujin novels, it was a place where dreams began. When Lin Feng read the novels, he yearned for it. He wanted nothing more than to fly into the novels and become the main character in them. Then, he would activate his Goldfinger and become stronger. Finally, he would punch the Martial Soul nursing home and kick the Stardow kindergarten. However, when he really transmigrated to the Holy Spirit Village and became a 3-year-old child, Lin Feng realized that this world was not very friendly. In the past, the cell phone was half of Lin Feng's life. It had become a basic habit to keep it close to him. To him, who was used to modern life, this boring life without happy drinks, cell phones, and the internet was too unbearable. When he first arrived, it was simply torture. There were many things that Lin Feng was not used to. However, humans were very adaptable creatures. It only took 3 months for Lin Feng to slowly accept and get used to this world. However, there was one thing that always bothered him. 3 years had passed, and he was now 6 years old. However, his Goldfinger had not arrived yet. He did not know if it was because of a traffic jam or some other reason, but it made him very depressed. Lin Feng did not believe that he did not have a Goldfinger. After all, as a transmigrator and a standard orphan template, this was definitely the fate of a main character. He believed in the saying, "The Goldfinger may be late, but it will never be absent." These few days were a special period of time. This was because Mr. Su Yuntao, who was known as the Iron Man, would come to the village in a week to awaken the martial soul for children above the age of 6. This was also considered the official start of Douluo's storyline. During these few days, Lin Feng woke up full of energy every day. "Grandpa Jack, I'm going out to play. Breakfast is on the table. Remember to eat it." After saying that, Lin Feng did not wait for a reply and dashed out the door. Because the Holy Soul Village was poor, there was no orphanage. Orphans like Lin Feng were supposed to be sent to the orphanage in Nodding City. However, Lin Feng was especially well-behaved and likable. In addition, under his own request, village elder Jack did not send him to Nodding City in the end, but adopted him instead. The children in this world matured early. 6 years old might still be kindergarten children in his previous life, but here, some of them had already started working in the fields with their parents. Lin Feng didn't have to work that hard. After all, he was the son of the village chief. But when it came to cooking, he was always the one in charge. It wasn't that he wanted to cook, but because old Jack's cooking wasn't to his taste, Lin Feng was forced to cook. After more than a year, it had become a habit. Lin Feng even enjoyed it, and his culinary skills had improved greatly. After breakfast, Lin Feng began his morning exercise as usual. The morning exercise was very simple. It was just a simple jog with some stretching exercises at most. After all, his body was not fully grown, and he had not awakened his martial soul, so his body was still very weak. If he directly underwent high-intensity training, it would be very harmful to his body. Simple and moderate jogging would not only not harm his body, it would also promote his body's growth, making Lin Feng full of energy for the whole day. The reason why he did this every day was very simple. Lin Feng did not want to live an ordinary life. Even if he didn't have a cheat in the end, he didn't want to awaken a trash martial soul without any spirit power. Even if he didn't have innate full spirit power like Tang San, he would at least have rank 1 or 2 spirit power to give him a chance to cultivate. Otherwise, if he came to Douluo's world and couldn't even become a spirit master in the end, how sullen would that be? "Fenggo, what round is it now?" As he was running, a plainly dressed child walked over from the direction of a small hill not far away. Even though his clothes were plain, his little face was incomparably clean, especially his pair of bright eyes, which made people feel that he was full of spirituality. Lin Feng stopped and teased, "It's the second round. Xiao-san, you want to watch the sunrise again?" Tang San was indeed worthy of being the main character. Lin Feng knew how hard he worked. 2 years ago, Lin Feng saw this guy starting to climb that small hill every morning. As long as it wasn't raining, it was like this every day. This kind of hard work made Lin Feng blush with shame. At the same time, Lin Feng was especially greedy for the mysterious heaven treasure record that Tang San cultivated. Therefore, Lin Feng began to get close to him, wanting to learn. However, Tang San was very tight-lipped. It had been 2 years, and he didn't even say anything, let alone teach him. There was even one time when Lin Feng deliberately climbed up a mountain to hide, and then suddenly appeared when he was cultivating. Guess what? Tang San actually came up with the excuse that he liked to watch the sunrise. In the end, Lin Feng gave up. However, the relationship between the two was still quite good. He was Tang San's only friend in the Holy Spirit Village. Yes, the sunrise is quite beautiful. Tang San nodded, then waved his hand. Feng Ge, keep running. The porridge is almost ready. I have to go back to eat. Speaking of which, among the children of the same age in the entire Holy Spirit Village, only Lin Feng and Tang San could talk. After all, they had the souls of adults, so they could still talk. However, Tang San always felt that Lin Feng was a little too curious. He always wanted to pry into his secrets. Moreover, when the two were together, this guy always liked to call him Xiao San. It couldn't be helped. The other party was older than him by a few months, and he couldn't refute. This was very uncomfortable. However, Tang San also admired Lin Feng. He was an orphan. Although he was adopted, he was still able to live so optimistically. It was really admirable. 3 days later is the day of the martial soul awakening. Grandpa Jack should be informing you and your father at noon. I'm here to tell you in advance. Hearing this, Tang San stopped in his tracks, turned around, and said in surprise, 3 days later? Lin Feng couldn't be more familiar with martial souls. When chatting with Tang San, he often mentioned it. So now, Tang San wasn't unfamiliar with martial souls. At the same time, he was looking forward to what martial soul he was going to awaken. Yes, it's going to awaken in 3 days. Grandpa Jack said that the deacon of the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Notting City will come to awaken it for us. Lin Feng was also looking forward to it. After all, this would be a new experience. Not long ago, when he followed Old Jack into Notting City to do business, he saw the appearance of a soul master releasing a soul ring. That aura, that prestige. It was really cool. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. Feng Ge, what kind of martial soul do you think I will awaken? Tang San's little face was full of curiosity. In his opinion, Lin Feng was a very smart person. He knew so much about soul masters, so Tang San felt that Lin Feng could give him an answer. This feeling was just like how the older generation in his previous life looked at the current college students. Elder, you majored in electrical engineering? Then you must know about electrical appliances, right? College student, I know a little. Elder, that's good. It just so happens that the TV at home is broken. You can fix it for me. Also, Annie Zhang's grandson's computer next door is also broken. You can also fix it later. College student? Although this situation was a bit exaggerated, sometimes people's psychology was like this. They felt that if you knew a little, you would know everything. At this time, Tang San also thought so. Lin Feng definitely knew these things. And coincidentally, Lin Feng really did know. After a pause, he said, Xiao San, think about it. Your father is a blacksmith and often uses a hammer to forge iron. So I think that your martial soul will be a hammer. Hammer? Tang San was stunned and asked suspiciously, so careless? You don't like it? Lin Feng curled his lips. A hammer is considered a good martial soul. I heard that most people have sickles, sticks, and the like. There's also the standard trash martial soul, blue silvergrass. Don't tell me you want to awaken the blue silvergrass. Of course not. Tang San hurriedly said, but Feng Ge, didn't you say that martial souls are inherited? I've never known what my father's martial soul is. He's never used it, and I don't dare to ask. As for my mother, I've never even seen her before. So, I feel that the matter of my martial soul being a hammer is a bit hasty, right? Although Lin Feng was knowledgeable and Tang San had never doubted anything, subconsciously, he still didn't believe it. Seeing this, Lin Feng walked a few steps to Tang San's side and patted his shoulder like an old man. Xiao San, anyway, you'll awaken in 3 days. You'll know when the time comes. Don't think too much about it now. All right, Aren't you still cooking porridge at home? If it's porridge, if it's cooked for too long, it will. Before he could finish, Tang San's face changed. Ah, I forgot that I'm cooking porridge. If it's burnt, Dad will scold me again. Feng Ge, thank you for telling me this news. I'll leave first. With that, Tang San's little legs ran very fast and disappeared in an instant. Ha ha ha! Looking at this scene, Lin Feng laughed out loud. After the morning exercise, Lin Feng would do some simple strength training in the morning. In the past, he wouldn't do it. After all, his body was too small and it was easy to hurt himself. Now that he was almost 6.5 years old, he began to do some simple training since he was 6 years old. During lunch, Lin Feng was repeatedly warned by old Jack that he was not allowed to go anywhere these few days and could only stay in the village. There was no other way. Lin Feng was very wild. When he was 5 years old, he liked to run into the forest with Tang San, saying that he wanted to see the spirit beasts. After all, he was very curious. After living 2 lives, he didn't even know what the spirit beasts looked like. It would be strange if he wasn't curious. Tang San was also very curious about the spirit beasts. Coupled with his courage, the two hit it off. However, Lin Feng wasn't a fool. He wouldn't really run into the spirit beast forest. At most, he would stroll around the nearby forest and experience the atmosphere. The difference between the spirit beasts and wild beasts was that they had special abilities and were extremely lethal. Even a 10-year spirit beast could use skills. It wasn't something that 2 brats could resist. Therefore, Lin Feng wouldn't foolishly send himself to death. Besides, he couldn't enter the spirit beast forest even if he wanted to. The nearby spirit beasts were all in the spirit hunting forest where the Empire specialized in raising spirit beasts. It was heavily guarded. Moreover, the distance was very far. With his and Tang San's speed, they would probably have to walk for a few days. This was something that old Jack absolutely wouldn't allow. Tang San wouldn't agree either. Therefore, in the end, Lin Feng and Tang San would at most walk around the forest and experience the atmosphere. They had never encountered a spirit beast before. At most, they had seen some small animals. They didn't plan to go out for the next few days. Lin Feng also had to work hard to train his body since he was about to awaken his martial soul. After all, the stronger the body, the greater the chance of awakening spirit power. The illusory golden finger hadn't come yet, so Lin Feng could only rely on himself now. In the evening, Lin Feng lay comfortably on the grass as he watched the sunset gradually fall from the sky. His heart felt empty. The night breeze blew, and the fresh air entered his lungs, refreshing his mind. At this moment, Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. This world wasn't bad. In his previous life, he lived a busy life and had to work in 2 places and do the same thing every day. Although there were mobile phones, computers, and other tools that allowed people to relax, they only treated the symptoms and not the root cause. Wasn't this empty and carefree feeling what Lin Feng had dreamed of in his previous life? And at this moment, ding, detected that the Douluo continent storyline has officially begun. The auxiliary upgrade system is online. With this notification, Lin Feng realized that the golden finger that he had been waiting for day and night had finally come online. He jumped up from the grass excitedly and shouted excitedly, "Awesome! P.S. New book released. Looking for recommendations, looking for collections, all kinds of requests." Chapter 2. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul. Unawakened Soul Power. Rank 1 Soul Ring. None experience points. 0. This was the character panel that appeared in Lin Feng's mind. The information was very concise. After a few minutes, the extremely excited Lin Feng finally understood all the functions of this auxiliary upgrade system. This system didn't have any system sprites, but it would transmit information about all the functions to his mind. Lin Feng had spent the past few minutes comprehending this information. The system mainly had 2 functions. The first function was the character panel function. It could display his current situation. Don't think that this function was useless just because it was basic. In fact, it was very useful. It could allow Lin Feng to have a clear understanding of his own body, and he could understand every improvement clearly in his heart. For example, the rank 1 soul power. Before awakening the martial soul, Everyone's soul power was hidden and couldn't be distinguished. It could only be known after the martial soul awakening. But now, Lin Feng could directly know. Although rank 1 soul power meant that he would at most be a soul grandmaster in the future, it at least gave him confidence that he was no longer an ordinary person who couldn't cultivate. However, this was also nonsense. After Lin Feng awakened the system, his peak in the future couldn't possibly be a small soul grandmaster. The second function was called the experience points function. It was also the main function of this system. The auxiliary upgrade system, as the name implied, was a system that could help people become stronger. Its core was the experience points mentioned in the list. According to the system, as long as it was related to cultivation and could make one stronger, one would be able to obtain experience points. And experience points were the most useful thing. It could directly increase one's soul power and make one stronger. There was no need to bitterly cultivate like other soul masters. The most important thing was that experience points could not only increase his soul power rank, but also the rank of the soul rings he obtained. This was such an abnormal ability. Lin Feng remembered that in the novel, the rank of the soul rings couldn't be changed without divine power. In other words, the rank of Tang San's soul rings would only increase at the end of the divine exam. Other than that, there was no other way to increase the rank of the soul ring. On the other hand, Lin Feng had the ability to change the rank of his soul rings. Even if he obtained a white 10-year soul ring, there was still a chance for him to upgrade it to a red 100,000-year soul ring. It was even possible for him to have a million-year golden god-ranked soul ring. In the future, when I fight other titled Douluo, their soul rings will all be the same. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. Those who are slightly more powerful would at most have a few red soul rings. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. On the other hand, Lin Feng's soul rings were all red 100,000-year soul rings. His might and aura could probably scare others to death. Just thinking about that scene made Lin Feng feel incomparably excited. However, this was all for later. The first step now was to properly test out the EXP function, how to obtain it, how much it could be obtained, and how much would be needed to use it, etc. These were all questions that Lin Feng needed to know at the moment. Thinking about it, Lin Feng directly took a step forward and started running in the field. Running was a form of whole-body exercise that could strengthen one's physical fitness. It completely met the system's requirements for obtaining EXP. At this time, the sun was setting in the west, and the sky was gradually darkening. However, Lin Feng was extremely familiar with the field. At this time, there were no accidents as he ran quickly. However, this afternoon, Lin Feng had already done some strength training. At this time, his physical strength was already not much. After running for about 10 minutes, he stopped, panting. It wasn't that he couldn't continue running, but if he continued running, he would be exhausted and damage his body, or even directly injure himself. He was about to awaken his martial soul. If he was injured, it would greatly affect the awakening of his martial soul. Moreover, the state of his body would also affect the awakening process. In order to ensure that he would be in a full state after 3 days, Lin Feng couldn't do a lot of training. Even so, when he stopped, the system's message in his mind made Lin Feng very happy. Ding! After running for a while, the whole body is hot. EXP plus 10 EXP was not a lot. Just now, Lin Feng specially looked at it. If he wanted to increase his soul power from rank 1 to rank 2, he only needed 100 EXP. Running for a while gave him 10 EXP. According to the amount of training in the past, Lin Feng could run for about 160 to 170 EXP in a day. In other words, without damaging his body and without changing the EXP required to increase his soul power, Lin Feng could at least increase his soul power to rank 4 in these 3 days. However, this was the ideal situation. As for the specific situation, he still had to test it out. Thinking about it, Lin Feng rested for a while. After his body was better, he started running again. At this time, the sky was already completely dark. However, this didn't become an excuse to stop Lin Feng from continuing to run. It was old Jack. Old Jack saw that Lin Feng hadn't returned home when the sky was already dark, so he personally ran out to look for him. When he arrived at the village entrance, he found that Lin Feng was still running around outside. Old Jack immediately picked up the crutch in his hand and shouted, "Little brat." He directly chased Lin Feng back. However, Lin Feng was about to reach his limit at this time. His physical strength wasn't much, so it was just right for him to go back. EXP 37 inches more than 2 hours. Lin Feng spent most of his time resting. Only about half an hour was considered effective training. In the end, Lin Feng had a total of 37 EXP. After being brought home by Old Jack, the exhausted Lin Feng didn't have time to think about anything else. After taking a bath, he fell asleep. That night, perhaps because he was too excited, Lin Feng's brain cells were very active, and he had a very, very long dream. In the dream, he had already become a true soul master and awakened a powerful ball-shaped martial soul. He had cultivated in Nodding City's Elementary Soul Master Academy for 2.5 years. Today, he was going to the soul-hunting forest to hunt for his second soul ring. Without a teacher to lead the team, he was going to hunt alone. The soul-hunting forest was gloomy, and cold winds blew from time to time. However, Lin Feng had his martial soul attached to his body. As long as he didn't meet a powerful soul beast, he would be fine. As he walked, the wind and waves were calm. He didn't meet a single soul beast. Just as Lin Feng was relaxing, a huge rooster appeared above Lin Feng's head, covering the sky. When that foot stepped down, the trees in the forest were broken. It was like heaven and earth were turned upside down. Lin Feng couldn't stand steadily and fell to the ground. When he steadied himself, he saw that the surrounding trees had collapsed at some point, and the open space was empty. The huge rooster tilted its head and stared at Lin Feng with one eye. Silence. Silence. At this moment, Lin Feng was so nervous that he subconsciously stopped breathing. He didn't even dare to blink. He was scared silly. However, when he saw the unique patterns on the rooster's body, an absurd idea popped up in his mind. This rooster was simply too beautiful. However, in the next moment, the huge rooster bit towards him. Chapter 3. Don't eat me. Don't. That dream was too realistic. Lin Feng had never had such a realistic dream in his 2 lives. When he woke up, his forehead was covered in cold sweat. However, as he screamed, he realized that he was having a nightmare and immediately shut his mouth. Just as he was about to put on his clothes and prepare breakfast for his morning exercise, as usual, the system notification sounded. Ding! You had a nightmare in your sleep. You dreamed that you became a soul master who cultivated for 2.5 years. Your spiritual power has increased slightly. Experience plus 100 Lin Feng. After being stunned for a while, Lin Feng finally reacted. This works too. It seems that the system's range of judgment is very wide. But Lin Feng didn't think too much about it. Instead, he looked at the character panel in his mind. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul. Unawakened Soul Power. Rank 1 plus Soul Ring. None experience. 137. Sure enough, just as he thought, there was an option to increase his soul power rank. With a thought, Lin Feng's soul power immediately increased by 1 level, and the number of experience returned to 37. Because his martial soul had yet to awaken, the increase in soul power by 1 level wasn't very obvious. But Lin Feng could still feel that there was a certain increase in all aspects of his body. Jumping off the bed, after casually waving a few times, Lin Feng could feel the change in his strength even more. And when his soul power reached rank 2, Lin Feng realized that the experience he needed to reach rank 3 was still 100. He estimated that it would only change after he reached rank 10. This also meant that Lin Feng could reach rank 10 soul power in an extremely short period of time. He didn't know if the system would have a limit on soul rings. If there wasn't, Lin Feng could continue to level up. Thinking about this, Lin Feng was full of enthusiasm. He quickly finished breakfast and went out to train. And this training lasted for an entire day. When he was tired, he rested, and when his physical strength recovered a little, he started training again. Running, squatting up and down, push-ups, sit-ups, bobby jumps, and so on. Anyway, he started to try all the exercises that could be used to train his body in his previous life. Although the movements were not standard, and some of them were even practiced blindly, the effect was still there. His experience points had increased by a lot. After a day of looking at his character panel, Lin Feng was very pleased. Soul Power. Rank 4 experience points. 82, he received a total of 200 EXP, which was a lot more than the 100 EXP he had expected. As for the reason, of course, it was because he had increased the amount of training. Lin Feng wasn't blindly increasing his soul power for the sake of more experience. Instead, he saw that every time his soul power increased, his condition would improve slightly. Although it wasn't as overpowered as a full HP resurrection in the game, it still allowed Lin Feng's body to recover a lot. Coupled with the increase in his soul power, Lin Feng was able to train for more than 200 experience points in a day. The next day, because of the increase in his soul power, Lin Feng trained even harder. This whole day of training gave him a total of 300 EXP. This allowed Lin Feng's soul power to rise directly to rank 8. At this time, Lin Feng's physical fitness was estimated to be comparable to a 13 or 14-year-old youth. This was under the condition that his martial soul had not awakened. If he awakened his martial soul, Lin Feng would be even stronger. It was also because of this that he was able to endure today's high-intensity training. Otherwise, with his previous small body, he would have collapsed long ago. The reason why Lin Feng was so hardworking was very simple. It was to awaken a strong martial soul. According to the novel, the core competitiveness of the master's 10 martial souls was directly proportional to the strength of the martial soul. Especially a soul master with innate full soul power, it was impossible to awaken a trash martial soul. Even if it was a trash martial soul, it would be like Tang San, a twin martial soul, and the second martial soul would be incomparably powerful. As for Lin Feng, of course, he wanted to awaken a strong martial soul. He did not know who his parents were or what kind of martial soul they had passed on to him. It was most likely a trash martial soul. But as long as it was an innate full soul power, a trash martial soul would mutate and become stronger or awaken a twin martial soul. Therefore, Lin Feng was training so hard right now in order to reach the innate full soul power. At noon tomorrow, the toolman Su Yuntao would come to their Holy Spirit village. Lin Feng was completely exhausted today and could not train anymore. The only time left was tomorrow morning. As for waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning to train, it was not that Lin Feng did not want to, but that he really could not wake up. There was no alarm clock or anything like that here. His biological clock was also trained to wake up at 6 in the morning. In addition to today's tiredness, waking up early was simply a fantasy. However, Lin Feng still had 15 experience points. He only needed to accumulate 185 experience points for tomorrow morning's training. This was not a particularly difficult task. As long as he suffered a little, he could still achieve it. Thinking about how he would awaken his innate full soul power tomorrow, and how Su Yuntao would be shocked to see 2 people with innate full soul power in a village, Lin Feng hid under his blanket and laughed out loud. Today was the Holy Spirit Village's annual awakening day. It was also one of the few lively days in the village. At noon, counting the time, Old Jack led a group of people and waited at the entrance of the village very early in the morning. It seemed very grand. Behind him were the parents of the children who were about to awaken today. They came together to welcome him. On one hand, it was to show respect to the Spirit Master, and on the other hand, they wanted to get familiar with him. Although it did not have any substantial effect on their children's awakening, it still made them feel lucky. What if because of their words, the Spirit Master took care of their children when they awakened? Then, because of this extra care, their children would have soul power? It had to be said that this kind of mentality was very sad and pitiful. This was impossible. The martial soul awakening mainly depended on the children themselves. It did not have much to do with the Spirit Master who presided over the awakening. These people actually knew this, but they could not do anything about it. They could only do this to seek comfort in their hearts. Su Yuntao did not come late. Everyone waited for about half an hour before he arrived. It was similar to the ancient officials who came to patrol. Facing a deacon of the Martial Soul Branch Hall in Notting City, coupled with the other party's strength, the people of the Holy Spirit Village were very humble. After saying some polite words, Su Yun Tao was led to the Martial Soul Hall in the center of the village by the village chief. Although it was called the Martial Soul Hall, it was actually just a small wooden house. There were already 8 children waiting inside. They were all children of the Holy Spirit Village who had turned 6 this year. Their small faces were filled with nervousness and anticipation. Glancing around, he did not see Lin Feng and Tang San. Old Jack became anxious. He immediately excused himself from Su Yun Tao and went out to look for them. Chapter 4. Lin Feng, that little brat, really makes people worry. For the past few days, Old Jack had reminded him to stay here at noon every day during mealtimes. He didn't expect that he would drop the ball at such a crucial moment after agreeing in the morning. Moreover, Lin Feng often stayed at home before. But for the past few days, other than when he came back during mealtimes, he spent every day in the forest to the west of the village, playing something crazy. Thinking of this, Old Jack angrily rushed in that direction. Coincidentally, that direction was also in the direction of Tang San's home. Since it was on the way back, he could bring Tang San with him. Speaking of Tang San, Old Jack felt that it was a pity. He didn't have a mother when he was young, and he had a useless alcoholic father, Tang Hao. If it wasn't for Tang Hao's blacksmithing skills, they would have been chased out of the village a long time ago. Even so, Tang San's family was the poorest in the entire village. If Tang San was an ordinary child, Old Jack wouldn't think much of it. At most, he would feel pity for him. But Tang San was unusually sensible. He was only a few years old, yet he was already taking care of his alcoholic father. His obedient appearance really made one's heart ache. It also made Old Jack feel pity for him. Just as he was thinking, 2 children were walking in this direction on the street in front of him. Old Jack focused his eyes. Weren't they Lin Feng and Tang San? Little Feng, you little brat. The Lord Soul Master is already here, yet you're still here leisurely. Are you looking for a beating? Old Jack glared and shouted from afar. Hearing this, Lin Feng immediately raised his head and saw Old Jack's angry face. His small eyes turned, and Lin Feng greeted him with a grin. He intimately grabbed Old Jack's hand and shook it. Grandpa Jack, didn't you say that Xiao San's family probably didn't have anyone to remind them? I thought it was quite pitiful, so I came over. I was just about to bring Xiao San over. Why did you come personally? Old Jack was very concerned about him. This was something that Lin Feng knew. Old Jack was very angry that he didn't wait for the Soul Master in the Martial Soul Palace this afternoon. Therefore, Lin Feng could only find an excuse to dispel Old Jack's anger. However, Lin Feng wasn't late on purpose. He had just returned from outside the village. Lin Feng spent the entire morning training. He didn't slack off until he reached rank 10. However, the strange thing was that his training volume was much higher than before, but the experience he gained did not increase. Instead, it decreased. Or to put it another way, before Lin Feng ran for about 10 minutes, he got 10 experience points. But this morning, after running for 10 minutes, he only got 3 or 4 experience points. Even though his EXP from yesterday was much higher than the day before, because of the increase in his physical fitness, his training was almost twice as much as the day before, but his EXP was not twice as much. In total, yesterday's efficiency was 30% lower than the day before. Today, it was even worse. It was almost 60% lower. In fact, Lin Feng should have noticed this yesterday. However, he was blinded by the experience points and only noticed it today. The reason should be that his physical fitness had increased. Therefore, the same type of training was no longer as effective as before. From this point, Lin Feng could tell that the system's judgment was not based on how much he had done, but on how much the things he had done had an effect on him. This was only Lin Feng's initial guess. However, he still needed to spend some time to test it out. Fortunately, Lin Feng didn't slack off at all today. He continued to train and rushed to reach rank 10 before Su Yun Tao began to awaken his martial soul. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul. Unawakened Soul Power. Rank 10 Soul Rings. None experience points. 3 after reaching rank 10. From the system's information, Lin Feng discovered that the experience points he needed to reach rank 11 had increased from 100 to 500. Most importantly, Lin Feng also learned that before he obtained a soul ring, he couldn't continue to level up. He could only level up after obtaining a soul ring. Although this was a bit of a pity, it was nothing. It wasn't like he couldn't gain experience points, but he couldn't level up immediately. Lin Feng could save up for now. Moreover, he was already rank 10. After entering the school, Lin Feng could immediately obtain his first soul ring. At that time, he could level up again. If I didn't come, Lord Soul Master would have personally captured the two of you. Seeing Lin Feng's smiling face, old Jack didn't say much. Let's go. It's time to awaken your martial soul. With a snort, he brought the two of them to the center of the village. Seeing this, Lin Feng turned his head and raised his eyebrows at Tang San, as if to say, "Little guy, learn a bit." However, the latter didn't understand this layer of meaning. He only scratched his head in confusion, thinking, what's wrong with Fengge? Did sand get into his eyes? Along the way, old Jack explained the concept of a soul master. This wasn't for Lin Feng to hear. Old Jack had told him before. Now he opened his mouth specifically to tell Tang San. However, Tang San already knew from Lin Feng, and he knew much more than old Jack. However, he was still a polite and good child. He didn't show any impatience or arrogance. He just listened quietly. Soon, the two of them were brought to the Martial Soul Hall in the center of the village. Because their martial souls were about to awaken, irrelevant personnel were all driven out. There was only a youth in his 20s and 7 children around 6 years old. The youth had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. His appearance was above average, and he looked somewhat handsome. He wore white clothes with a black cloak on his back. In the center of his chest, there was a fist-sized soul character. This was the standard attire of a direct subordinate of the Martial Soul Hall. On his left chest, there was an insignia with a long sword carved on it. There were a total of 3 long swords crisscrossing on the insignia. People like old Jack, who were very familiar with Soul Masters, knew that 3 swords represented a Soul Master's 3rd rank title, Soul Grandmaster. As for the long sword, it represented that this deacon from the Martial Soul Hall was a soul warrior. There was no need for an introduction. The moment he saw this youth, Lin Feng knew that he was the legendary Su Yuntao. Old Jack first brought Lin Feng and Tang San to the side of the 7 children. Then, he respectfully bowed to the youth. Respected Soul Battle Grandmaster, the last 2 children have been brought here. This time, we'll have to trouble you. The youth's eyebrows revealed a faint pride. He slightly bowed in return. I don't have much time. Let's start now. Okay. Old Jack nodded and said, Children, this is a Soul Battle Grandmaster from Nodding City. Next, he will guide you to awaken your martial souls. You must cooperate with the Grandmaster to awaken your martial souls. Grandpa is looking forward to seeing one of you become a Soul Master. With that, Old Jack left. Chapter 5. After Old Jack left, Su Yuntao didn't waste any time. He had the 9 children stand in a row and smiled. My name is Su Yuntao, a rank 26 Soul Grandmaster. I will be your guide. Now, I will awaken your martial souls one by one. Remember, no matter what happens, don't be afraid. As he spoke, he opened his bag on the table beside him and took out 2 items. 6 jet black round stones and a shiny blue crystal ball. Su Yuntao placed the 6 black stones in a hexagonal shape on the ground. After a few seconds, a faint light emerged from the hexagonal shape. At this moment, Su Yuntao tilted his head and gestured for the first boy to stand in the middle. Don't be afraid. Close your eyes and feel it carefully. After a few seconds, Su Yuntao shouted, Lone Wolf possess. 2 soul rings, 1 white and 1 yellow, lit up under his feet and hovered above his head. At the same time, his body expanded rapidly. His muscles bulged, and he was filled with power. His body also began to partially transform into a wolf. His hair turned gray, and his eyes flickered with a faint green light. Sharp claws extended from his hands, and he looked exceptionally frightening. This scene scared the children into taking a step back. especially the little boy standing in the middle of the circle of light. At first, he still had his eyes closed. However, after Su Yuntao shouted for Lone Wolf to possess him, he opened his eyes curiously. Who knew that he would meet Su Yuntao's faint green eyes? In the next second, he screamed in fright and wanted to run away. However, Su Yuntao grabbed him and held him in place. "Don't move. I said don't be afraid. This is my martial soul, Lone Wolf. If any of you can become a bee soul master in the future, you will also use the same ability." Fortunately, they were prepared beforehand. Although they were afraid now, they quickly calmed down. Tang Xin wasn't afraid. He even curiously asked Lin Feng in a low voice, "Feng Ge, how is the Lone Wolf martial soul? It looks very strong." Glancing at Xiao San, Lin Feng said indifferently, "Trash." With the system, Lin Feng still had his innate full soul power. Lin Feng still had this bit of pride. Tang Xin was stunned. He did not know what to say. He sneaked a glance at Su Yuntao and realized that because of the martial spirit possession, Su Yuntao hadn't heard Feng Ji's words. Otherwise, he would have been reprimanded. But then again, Feng Ge was truly worthy of being called experienced and knowledgeable. Even in front of a rank 26 Soul Grandmaster, his expression didn't change at all. Truly formidable. Su Yuntao didn't hear the conversation between the two, but among the 9 children, the other 7 showed obvious signs of fear. Only these 2 looked calm, which made him take another look. However, Su Yuntao didn't think too much about it. Facing the hexagonal stone, Su Yuntao's hands quickly shot out several green lights. Suddenly, a layer of golden light was released from the 6 stones, forming a pale golden light shield that enveloped the child. After a few seconds, when the golden light converged into the boy's body, Su Yuntao said softly, "Extend your right hand." Hearing this, the child hurriedly extended his hand. As he opened his palm, a small sickle appeared in his hand out of thin air. Su Yuntao said calmly, "This is a tool martial spirit sickle. It can barely be considered a weapon. If you have soul power, you can still cultivate it. Use your thoughts to withdraw your martial spirit." Saying this, Su Yuntao took out the blue crystal ball from before and handed it to the little boy, indicating for him to put his hand on it. The little boy spent a few seconds to withdraw his martial spirit. Then, he nervously placed his hand on the crystal ball. After a moment, Su Yuntao shook his head in disappointment. "Without soul power, you can't become a soul master. Go to the side first." Before coming to the Holy Spirit Village, Su Yuntao had already gone to several villages in the past few days. However, without exception, he didn't find a single child with soul power. He had already made the same plans for this village. Things went as he expected. The same scene repeated itself. One after another, 6 children's martial spirits awakened. Their martial spirits were all hoes, sickles, and blue silvergrass. Not a single beast martial spirit appeared. As for soul power, Su Yuntao determined that they had none. Next was Tang San's turn. There was no need for Su Yuntao to shout. When the previous person left, Tang San took the initiative to run up. Su Yuntao still had some impression of Tang San. He was one of the 2 children who hadn't been frightened before. However, it was just a slight impression. Su Yuntao didn't say much. As usual, he shot out several green rays towards the hexagonal stone. After awakening so many martial spirits and continuously using soul power, Su Yuntao was already a little tired. However, in the next second, his eyes suddenly lit up. He saw that within the golden light barrier, the number of golden dots that appeared this time was even more than all the children's martial spirits combined. He could vaguely feel that a relatively powerful martial spirit was about to appear. His excitement overflowed. However, when Tang San subconsciously raised his right hand, the excitement on Su Yuntao's face was instantly replaced by disappointment. Blue silvergrass. This was the second time it had appeared in the village's martial spirit hall today. Sigh. Another trash martial spirit. It has no attack power, no defense, and no support abilities. Blue silvergrass can be considered the standard form of a trash martial spirit. Su Yuntao's tone didn't conceal his disappointment. However, he was immediately shocked. When Tang San placed his hand on the crystal ball, it actually emitted a dazzling light. Innate full soul power. It's actually innate full soul power, Su Yintao muttered. With a wave of his hand, the crystal ball bounced off Tang San's hand and flew into Su Yintao's hand. At this moment, Tang San's first thought was nothing else. He turned around and looked at Lin Feng in astonishment. Feng Ge had told him that his martial spirit would awaken a hammer. Now, he had actually awakened it. That's right. On the surface, Tang San's martial spirit was blue silvergrass. In reality, he had awakened two martial spirits at once. However, Tang San subconsciously didn't want to reveal this secret. Therefore, he hid his second martial spirit and only revealed blue silvergrass. Since Tang San had awakened a hammer, he was completely convinced of Lin Feng's martial spirit knowledge. He decided that he would ask Feng Ge later and see what was going on. However, this thought only lasted for a moment. At this moment, he was still in the process of awakening his martial spirit. Tang San quickly gathered his thoughts and looked at Su Yintao. On Su Yintao's side, after he took back the crystal ball, he carefully examined it. After a few seconds, he put it down in a daze. At this moment, the way he looked at Tang San was completely different. It was as if he was looking at a monster. Chapter 6. Seeing Tang San quietly waiting for him, Su Yintao sighed. Child, you had such a pity. Innate full soul power was a rare talent. Su Yintao didn't expect him to have a blue-silver grass martial soul. He didn't know what to say. Why is it a pity? Tang San asked curiously. Looking at the curious Tang San, Su Yintao sighed again. To become a soul master, innate soul power is the most important thing. As long as you have innate soul power when you awaken, you can cultivate through meditation and become a soul master. Of course, the less innate soul power you have, the lower your aptitude and the lower your future achievements. The limit of most soul masters is rank 29 soul grandmaster. And the more innate soul power you have, the higher your future achievements will be. As for innate full soul power, it means that you have rank 10 innate soul power. The number of times innate full soul power has appeared on the continent can be counted on one hand. Every one of them is a shocking talent, and there are many who can reach the title Douluo. I've never met anyone with innate full soul power. When I awakened, I only had rank 2 soul power. So far, you're the first and probably the last one I've met. But unfortunately, your martial soul is blue silvergrass. It's a standard trash martial soul. It can be considered trash in the future. The theory that trash martial souls couldn't become a powerful soul master was a publicly acknowledged phenomenon. After all, in the entire continent, soul masters with trash martial souls were extremely rare. Soul grandmasters were even rarer existences. As for trash martial souls above soul grandmasters, there wasn't a single one. This was because a trash martial soul meant that one's innate soul power was low. Almost 99% of soul masters with trash martial souls had rank 1 innate soul power. Tang San's innate full soul power was probably the only one in the entire history of Douluo. So at this moment, Su Yintao felt that it was a pity. So what if he had innate full soul power? At most, he would be a soul grandmaster. As he spoke, Su Yintao shook his head. All right, next one. On the other side, Tang San did not say anything. He just walked back as if he understood something. However, in his heart, he was thinking that Su Yintao's martial soul knowledge wasn't as good as Feng Ge's. He would have to find Feng Ge and have a good chat later. As he was thinking, Tang San noticed that Lin Feng patted his shoulder and gave him an encouraging look. Just as Su Yintao was about to say something, the other party was already standing in front of him, ready to awaken. At this moment, it was impossible for Lin Feng not to be nervous. This was the awakening of his martial spirit, and it was the first time in both of his lifetimes. Don't be fooled by the way he talked to Tang San, talking about martial souls as if they were nothing. In fact, he was a proper cloud spirit master. Lin Feng was still very nervous when he really had to go on stage. However, with the system as his backing, Lin Feng did not panic. Here it comes. Su Yintao activated the awakening array and golden light spread out. In an instant, a warm current enveloped Lin Feng. It was as if his whole body was soaking in a hot spring, making him feel very comfortable. Under Su Yuntao's astonished gaze, the rich golden light condensed in Lin Feng's right palm. At this moment, the system sent him a notification that surprised him. Ding! Detected that the host is in the process of awakening his martial soul. The auxiliary upgrade system is officially activated. Receive newbie gift pack. Oh, I was wondering why there wasn't a newbie gift pack before. So, who was waiting here? Without hesitation, Lin Feng immediately opened the newbie gift pack. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining twin martial souls, Thousand Trickster Ruler, and Immeasurable Flower. At the same time, Lin Feng slowly opened his right hand, and an unknown black flower appeared in his palm. This was the Immeasurable Flower. Of course, in Lin Feng's left hand, there was a small white ruler, but he did not show it. This is a wildflower? Su Yuntao said with slight disappointment. To be honest, he was also looking forward to Lin Feng's martial soul. After all, when Lin Feng awakened, the golden light was very rich. He didn't expect that in the end, he would only awaken an unknown wildflower. Come, let's see if you have any soul power. A flower-type martial soul has a certain degree of auxiliary ability. As long as you have innate soul power, you can become an auxiliary-type soul master in the future. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng placed his small hand on the crystal ball. In an instant, the crystal ball blossomed with a resplendent light. This, another innate full soul master? Su Yintao was starting to doubt his life. He had just said that he would never meet a second innate full soul master in his life. However, the second soul master with innate full soul power immediately appeared and slapped him in the face. But this slap to the face was good. Just a moment ago, it was a pity, but now it was no longer a pity. This person wasn't a trash martial soul like the blue silvergrass. Although it was just an ordinary flower, it had a certain degree of auxiliary ability. Furthermore, it was an innate full soul master. In the future, he would at least become a soul emperor. As long as he could rope this outstanding child into the martial soul hall, promotion and salary wouldn't be a dream. After recovering from his shock, Su Yuntao immediately became excited. Child, have you heard of the martial soul hall? Lin Feng nodded. Su Yuntao happily said, Then do you want to go to the martial soul hall to study? As long as you enter the martial soul hall, you'll be sent directly to Heaven Do City. Not only will the tuition be free, you'll also receive a monthly stipend. Instructors will also bring you to hunt soul beasts, and before he could finish speaking, Lin Feng shook his head. I don't want to go. Hey, no, do you know how good this treatment is? If it weren't for your innate full soul master, you wouldn't have received this treatment. Lin Feng replied without hesitation, I've already thought about it. I'll go to Nodding City's Elementary Soul Master Academy. Su Yuntao became anxious and couldn't help but raise his voice. Nodding City's Elementary Soul Master Academy can't compare to the Martial Soul Hall. Whose family are you from? Who are your parents? At this moment, old Jack, who had been guarding the door, heard the commotion and immediately ran in. He was slightly nervous. Respected Battle Soul Grandmaster, what happened? Seeing the village chief, Su Yuntao's expression relaxed. He smiled and said, Old Jack, your Holy Soul Village is really good this year. 2 innate full soul masters appeared at once. What? Innate full soul masters? And 2 of them? Old Jack trembled and almost dropped the walking stick in his hand. After a while, Old Jack came back to his senses. Su Yuntao had already explained the situation to him. At this moment, under Old Jack's organization, only he, Lin Feng, Tang San, and Su Yuntao were left in the room. Looking at Old Jack's expression, Lin Feng knew that he wanted to persuade him. Therefore, Lin Feng spoke first. Grandpa Jack, I know what you want to say, but I really don't want to go to the Martial Soul Hall to study. I feel that going to the Elementary Soul Master Academy with Xiao San is pretty good. I can even take care of him. Chapter 7. Lin Feng's words made Tang San slightly moved. The martial spirit palace was such a good place. The reason why Fengge didn't go was to take care of him. Fengge was so nice. However, he couldn't let Fengge lose his opportunity. Tang San immediately said, Fengge, go to the martial spirit palace. The conditions are so good. You can have a better development there. I can do it alone. You can my ass. You can. Lin Feng's face tightened, and he said angrily, no matter what you say, I'm not going. This time, Tang Sin was almost moved to tears. Fengge was so determined for him. In these 2 years, he didn't realize that Fengge was such a sentimental person. What a mistake. At this moment, Tang Sin made up his mind. As long as he had something to eat in the future, he would share it with Fengge. Even if it weren't for the occasion, Tang San had the impulse to become sworn brothers with Lin Feng directly. However, Lin Feng's thoughts were not what Tang San thought at this time. Lin Feng was very clear about what kind of place the martial spirit palace was. It was a proper villain force. What good would it be to follow a villain? Wouldn't it be better to follow Tang San, the protagonist? And most importantly, Lin Feng was a person with a secret. If this secret was discovered by the martial spirit palace, it wouldn't be a good thing. But it was different in Notting City. There were not many strong people here. They were all weak. Lin Feng was not afraid of them after a few years of cultivation. So in general, there was no benefit to going to the martial spirit palace. Only a fool would go. Of course, he couldn't say it out loud. Lin Feng had to find an excuse for himself. After pondering for a while, he continued, although I have innate full soul power, my martial spirit is trash. If I go to the martial spirit palace, where geniuses gather, I will definitely be despised. I won't go. Su Yintao suddenly realized something. She only thought about her own promotion and pay, but ignored the feelings of other people's children. The children who were sent to Heaven Do City to be nurtured generally had innate soul power of the 7th rank and above. Their awakened martial souls were all very powerful, and they could be considered geniuses in the entire continent. Although Lin Feng had the innate full soul power, his martial soul was just an ordinary little flower. It couldn't be compared to them at all. If you were to send it over, you might really be despised. This was extremely cruel to a child. Old Jack also understood this point and immediately said, Sir, Xiao Feng is a sensible child. I think what he said is right. Although studying in the martial spirit palace is the best choice, since he doesn't want to go, then don't go. Sigh, if you don't want to go, then so be it. What a pity. Su Yintao shook his head. He didn't know if today was a lucky or unlucky day for him. Fortunately, he had awakened 2 children with the innate full soul power. This was probably the first time in the entire continent that this had happened. Unfortunately, one of them had a trash martial soul, and the other was more or less trash martial soul. Most importantly, his dream of getting a promotion and a raise had been shattered after tidying up his bag. Su Yintao took out 2 blank martial soul proofs. After a few swipes, he filled in the information on them and used his soul power to engrave them, then handed them over to old Jack. These are their martial soul certificates. Keep them well. With that, he turned around and left. But after taking 2 steps, he suddenly thought of something and turned back. I remember that your Holy Soul Village only has 1 quota for working students every year. If these 2 children go to school, before he could finish, old Jack said arrogantly, although our Holy Soul Village is poor, it is still a village that once produced a soul sage. We can still afford to send Xiao Feng to school. I'm not saying that you can't afford it. Su Yintao explained helplessly, what I'm saying is that I can help you write a letter of recommendation and apply for another quota. When you go to the academy, you can use the letter of recommendation to send both children to school for free. So it's like that. Old Jack immediately revealed a smile. It was a smile of poverty. Many thanks, Battle Soul Grandmaster. In the end, old Jack obtained a letter of recommendation from Su Yintao, as well as proof of 2 martial souls awakening. With this letter of recommendation, these 2 sensible children would be able to complete their studies in the Elementary Soul Master Academy as working students. Old Jack sent Su Yintao off. As soon as the 2 left, Tang San gave Lin Feng a big hug. Lin Feng was baffled. In his previous life, Tang San had no parents and was an orphan. In this life, he had a father. Although he wasn't very good to him, he was very happy. Now that he had Feng Ge who took care of him, Tang San was very happy. However, he didn't express his feelings. After hugging, they quickly separated. Feng Ge, you were right. My martial soul really is a hammer. As he spoke, Tang San raised his left hand, and a small black hammer appeared in it. The hammer was clearly very small, but it seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. After summoning it, Tang San could only hold it. His arms slowly drooped, and his face began to pale. Put away. This is a powerful martial soul, so you can't bear its strength. Lin Feng hurriedly said. Feng Ge, why do I have 2 martial souls? What's going on? Didn't you say that people can only have 1 martial soul? Tang San asked while gasping for breath. It's not that there aren't people with 2 martial souls. It's just that they are relatively rare. Or to put another way, people with twin martial souls are all geniuses. Lin Feng said with a smile. That's why, Xiao San, you're also a genius. It's even possible for you to become a titled Douluo. The title Douluo that's more powerful than the Soul Sage and Soul Douluo. Tang San's tone carried a trace of yearning. That's right. After nodding, Lin Feng urged, all right, the Q&A session is over. Your martial soul has been awakened for so long. Uncle Tang, how must be anxious. Why aren't you going back to report the situation? That's right. I have to quickly tell Dad about this. As he spoke, Tang San quickly ran in the direction of his home. At this moment, Tang San had no idea what a titled Douluo was. That was why he thought that it wasn't a big deal for Lin Feng to know about this. If Tang Hao was here, he would definitely be very surprised. Lin Feng was such a young child, but he actually knew about the titled Douluo with twin martial souls, and he wasn't surprised at all. How strange. On the spot, after Tang San left, Lin Feng also quickly ran toward the south. He ran in such a hurry because he wanted to go to a place where there was no one to test out his newly awakened martial soul and see what effect it had. After all, after opening the novice gift pack, the system didn't explain to him what the 2 martial souls were used for. He had to figure everything out himself. Thousand Trickster Ruler and Immeasurable Flower. Just by hearing the names, he felt that they were very powerful. They should be super powerful martial souls. Chapter 8. When they were awakening just now, Lin Feng could feel the strength of the 2 martial souls. The reason why the Immeasurable Flower looked ordinary was because Lin Feng deliberately controlled it. His goal was to not go to the martial soul hall. The final results showed that his move was very useful. If he had shown that his martial soul was very strong, Su Yuntao would probably have taken him away by force. That was not what Lin Feng wanted to see, so he disguised himself. In the depths of the forest south of the village, after confirming that there was no one around, Lin Feng began to test his 2 martial souls. With a raise of his hands, the Thousand Trickery Ruler and Immeasurable Flower instantly appeared in Lin Feng's hands. At this moment, the 2 martial souls were different from the ordinary ones from before. Instead, they were strange and extraordinary. First of all, the Immeasurable Flower did not feel anything when summoned. It did not consume any soul power. It was also not like Tang San's Clear Sky Hammer, which was so heavy that he could not even hold it firmly. This was a pure black flower, the size of a palm. There was nothing on it, and it looked slightly strange. Taking a closer look, there was actually a faint fragrance. Too feminine. This was not in line with the temperament of a transmigrator. However, when Lin Feng used his soul power, the Immeasurable Flower suddenly emitted a faint black light. That's right. It was a black light. Logically speaking, the black light did not exist. However, it appeared here at this moment, which made Lin Feng feel very surprised. That black light gave Lin Feng a very warm feeling. It was very comfortable. As for the effect of the Immeasurable Flower, Lin Feng tested it everywhere. In the end, he found that it was vitality. It could heal wounds, make grass grow crazily, and make wildflowers bloom. The strong vitality even made the small animals in the forest get close to Lin Feng. This experience was really magical. However, this vitality consumed a lot of soul power. The total time used was not more than a minute, but Lin Feng's soul power was less than half. Furthermore, this was under the condition that Lin Feng was using the immeasurable flower at low power. If he were to use the immeasurable flower at full power, his soul force would probably dry up within a few seconds. After experimenting with the immeasurable flower, Lin Feng started experimenting with the thousand-tool ruler. Just like the immeasurable flower, the thousand-trickster ruler didn't consume any soul power. It was a pure white ruler. It was rectangular and small, about 10 centimeters long. After using his soul power, the thousand-trickery ruler could change its size, and after experimenting with it, it could even change into any shape. After turning into a spear, it would become extremely sharp and could easily pierce through those small trees. When it turned into a shield, its defensive power would become extremely strong, turning into a sword. In any case, whatever it transformed into would have the corresponding characteristics, but using it would consume a lot of soul power. Furthermore, Lin Feng discovered that the more soul power he poured in, the more powerful the thousand-trickster ruler would become. You could even use soul power to change its size. In short, the thousand-trickster ruler could transform into any size and shape, worthy of the name thousand-trickster. However, all of this was related to the quality and quantity of soul power, as well as one's own spiritual power. Due to Lin Feng's current soul power, being able to transform the thousand-trickster ruler into the size of a basketball was already very impressive. Furthermore, Lin Feng's spiritual power wasn't strong, so he couldn't transform it into anything fine. Everything was very rough. However, in the future, when Lin Feng became stronger, he would definitely be able to transform it into something stronger, bigger, and finer. In fact, one day, when Lin Feng was fighting with someone, he could even pull out his 40-meter-long broadsword. He said heroically, "Brother, I can let you run 39 meters first." Tang San's house. Seeing Tang San put away the clear sky hammer, Tang Hao said with a serious face, "Xiao San, you must not tell anyone that you have two martial souls. Do you hear me? But I've already told Feng Ge. He said that I'm a genius, very powerful. The Lin Feng that Jack's family adopted." Tang Hao frowned slightly. Tang Hao knew that Lin Feng often came to his house to play with Tang San. He could be considered Tang San's only friend. However, because of this, Tang Hao was in a dilemma. The fact that Tang San had twin martial souls and innate full soul power gave him hope of avenging Ian, so he had to keep it secret. However, if Lin Feng knew, then, while thinking, Tang San opened his mouth. "It's him." "That's right, Dad. Before my martial soul awakened, he told me that you were a blacksmith, so I would definitely awaken a hammer martial soul. I didn't expect that in the end. It was really as he said." "Then what martial soul did he awaken?" Tang Hao asked back. "A little black flower. I don't know what it is, but Grandmaster Su Yuntao said that it was a martial soul slightly better than a trash martial soul. However, Feng Ge is the same as me. He also has innate full soul power. Tang Hao was shocked. Just now, Tang Sen said that he had innate full soul power, which already shocked Tang Hao. And now, there was another one? One had to know that even in the entire continent, innate full soul power was very rare, and a small Holy Spirit village had two of them in succession. It was hard not to be surprised. That's right. Grandmaster Su Yuntao invited Feng Ge to study at the Martial Soul Hall, but he refused. He said that he wanted to accompany me to Nodding City to study at the Elementary Spirit Master Academy. Tang Hao stroked his beard and muttered, "This kid is quite interesting." Tang Hao had watched Lin Feng grow up. In the past, he often came to his house to play and had a very good relationship with Tang San, often taking care of him. After a pause, Tang Hao said in a deep voice, "Xiao San, do you want to study at a Spirit Master Academy and become a Spirit Master?" "Yes." Tang San immediately nodded without hesitation. Tang Hao was silent for a while. then pointed at a piece of pig iron that was the size of a football. There are still 3 months before school starts. Do you see that piece of pig iron? As long as you can forge that piece of pig iron to the size of fist in these 3 months, you can go to school. Yes, I can definitely do it. Tang Sin nodded firmly. In the evening, Su Yuntao returned to the Martial Soul Hall in Nodding City and began to report the awakening of the various villages to the Hallmaster. There were a total of 3 children with innate full soul power. One of them was level 3, and the other 2 had innate full soul power. After hearing that there were 2 innate full soul power, the Hallmaster was very excited. However, after hearing that one of them had blue silvergrass and the other had an unknown wildflower, his mood dropped like a roller coaster and fell to the bottom. There was no need for blue silvergrass. A martial soul with no future could only become a spirit grandmaster in the future. As for the unknown wildflower, it was only slightly better than a trash martial soul. No matter how hard he worked, he could only become a spirit sage in the future. If he wanted to join the Martial Soul Hall, a spirit sage could still be nurtured. However, the other party did not want to join the Martial Soul Hall at all. Since that was the case, there was no need for them to warm up to a cold butt. It was just a spirit sage. Their Martial Soul Hall was not lacking. After the Hall Master reported the situation, the response he received was the same. The main hall did not attach much importance to it. If it did not want to come, then so be it. Therefore, in the end, these 2 innate full soul power did not stir up any waves in the Martial Soul Hall and quickly returned to peace. Chapter 9. Ding! After a period of martial soul practice, your control over your martial soul has increased. Experience points plus 11. Lin Feng had already heard a few system notifications like this in the afternoon. At first, the experience points were quite high, around 20 to 30 points. But now, as he became more familiar with it, the experience points were decreasing. After playing with his martial soul for an entire afternoon, the novelty had already passed. Furthermore, Lin Feng was so tired that he was about to die, so he quickly returned home. While eating, old Jack excitedly nagged him a few times, saying that the Holy Spirit Village was finally going to have a spirit master. He even said that his grandson was going to be successful and that he would be able to bring honor to his ancestors. Speaking of which, it wasn't easy for old Jack. He was truly giving his all for the village. Now that he was nagging, Lin Feng didn't become impatient. Instead, he agreed with a few words, causing old Jack to reveal a happy smile. Today, there were still 3 months before the start of Nodding City's Elementary Spirit Master Academy. These 3 months were also the golden period for Lin Feng's training. He had customized a training plan for himself in order to have a certain level of combat strength before school started. Why did he have to have combat strength? Because Lin Feng wanted to find an opportunity to hunt soul beasts alone. The age didn't need to be too old. 10 years, 100 years, and a suitable one would do. Even so, for Lin Feng, this wasn't a small goal. He needed to work hard. After all, to acknowledge a teacher in school, to teach him how to cultivate, for Lin Feng, this wasn't necessary. He only needed to rely on the system to increase his strength. In addition, his own cultivation speed was definitely faster than ordinary people. This was a secret. Lin Feng couldn't let others take him to hunt soul beasts. Therefore, hunting soul beasts alone would be Lin Feng's compulsory course. As for the Spirit Master Academy, was it necessary? This question was similar to, is it necessary to study? Lin Feng's answer was, yes, it was necessary. It was 100% necessary. Strength, and whether you needed to study or not, were 2 completely different things. It didn't mean that you could look down on everything just because you were strong. Take, for example, even if you have the strength of Captain America, do you dare to enter the minefield without any knowledge of modern weapons? If you don't even know what a landmine is, the only result of going in is nothing more than a boom and you'll be gone. It was the same for soul masters. If Lin Feng couldn't even recognize soul beasts, what if he accidentally encountered a 10,000-year soul beast in the forest? However, do you think that it's just a small 100-year soul beast? Wouldn't it explode on the spot if it fought? Therefore, entering a Soul Master Academy to study was very necessary. Lin Feng's 3-month training plan was very simple. He had a goal. In the first month, he raised his physical fitness to its current peak. It had to be said that a soul master's body was very strong. He was clearly only a 6-year-old child, but with the support of his soul power, Lin Feng's strength was about the same as an adult without any soul power. Of course, ordinary people weren't that powerful. Lin Feng had such a strong body because of his twin martial souls and innate full soul power. Compared to Tang San, who cultivated the mysterious heaven treasure record, Lin Feng was somewhat lacking. However, in 3 months, Lin Feng was confident that he could catch up to him. With the immeasurable flower, Lin Feng didn't have to worry about injuries. He just had to train as hard as he could. Unless it was mental exhaustion, he could easily overcome any difficulties in his body. Under such circumstances, as long as Lin Feng didn't slack off, his strength would definitely increase rapidly. In the first month, Lin Feng had to train himself. In the second month, Lin Feng had to start practicing his techniques. Knife, fork, sword, halberd, spear. 18 types of weapons. With the 1,000 trickster ruler, Lin Feng would eventually need to use it in the future. In the second month, Lin Feng had to practice all of these. He didn't ask to be proficient, just not unfamiliar. At the very least, he had to know how to use them. At the same time, in the second month, Lin Feng had to find the most suitable weapon for himself. And in the third month, Lin Feng had been practicing this weapon to make it lethal. Then, he would use it to form his fighting strength and prepare to hunt soul beasts. The 3-month plan was more or less like this. Today was the first day, and Lin Feng had already started training. No matter what he did, execution was the most important thing. Since Lin Feng had planned to start today, then he would start training today. And what's starting tomorrow, definitely next time, they were all fake. They were all excuses. Only by grasping the present was the wisest decision. On the first day, Lin Feng's training wasn't the usual training. Instead, it was to build a secret base. Previously, with his small body, even if he had an idea, he couldn't implement it. Now it was different. He had awakened his martial soul. Under the changes of the 1,000 trickster ruler, Lin Feng used would to create many training equipment, such as horizontal bars, parallel bars, and so on. Other than that, Lin Feng also had to create some wooden weapons, such as swords, spears, halberds, and so on, to practice. But at this time, the matter of weapons could be put aside for now. The most important thing was to create a batch of training equipment. Because of the limitations of the materials and his own skills, Lin Feng's equipment was very simple and crude. But in terms of effect, it wasn't much worse. In the evening, looking at the slightly decent secret base, Lin Feng's face revealed a proud expression. After casually training a few times and testing the effects, Lin Feng went back. But what Lin Feng didn't realize was that not long after he left, an uninvited guest had barged into the newly built secret base. It was a middle-aged man with stubble. Looking closely, it was Tang San's father, Hao Hian Douluo Tang Hao. Ever since Tang San found out that Lin Feng also had innate full spirit force, Tang Hao became curious about this little guy. Today, he secretly observed Lin Feng to see if there was anything special about this kid. He didn't know if he didn't look, but when he looked, even he, Douluo, was very surprised. Those strange objects looked like equipment for training the body. But even with Tang Hao's experience, he had never seen anything like that before. After observing for a while, Tang Hao couldn't suppress the curiosity in his heart. He tried on these equipment according to Lin Feng's movements just now. A few minutes later, he didn't feel anything special. But Tang Hao knew very well that this was because he had the strength of Douluo, so he didn't feel anything. If it was an ordinary person or a low-level spirit master, these things could indeed be used to train the body. This Feng kid is quite extraordinary, just like Xiao San. Although Tang Hao didn't care much about Tang San, he still knew a little about Tang San's situation. Putting aside the fact that he had innate full spirit force, that kid had the strength of a god, and he woke up so early every day to train. His willpower was far beyond that of ordinary people. Now Lin Feng seemed to be a little special, which made Tang Hao feel very interested. P.S. During the new book period, I hope that readers will vote for Feng Yun cast. Thank you. Chapter 10. As for Lin Feng, Tang Hao didn't pay him any more attention after observing him once. Although this guy was a bit special, in the eyes of a titled battle pet warrior like Douluo, he was just so. He wasn't his son, so there was no need to pay attention to him all the time. The next day, Lin Feng officially began his training. It had to be said that awakening his martial soul had a huge impact on Lin Feng. If Lin Feng's training intensity was 1 before his martial soul awakening, then his training time was also 1. But now his training intensity was at least 3 times, and his training time was even more exaggerated, almost 5 times. In addition to the equipment, in general, Lin Feng's training volume was almost 4 to 5 times more than before. In this way, Lin Feng's training effect was also greatly improved, and the speed at which he gained experience had also increased by several times. Just like that, 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 10 days, Lin Feng not only trained his physical body, but he also trained his martial soul. Under these circumstances, one thing was that his physical fitness had increased, and the other thing was that Lin Feng's control of his martial soul was not as rusty as before, and he was clearly much more proficient. Right in the 10 core competencies of a master's martial soul, there was one point. When a soul master's rank reached a multiple of 10, even if they didn't obtain a soul ring, their soul power would still increase, but it wouldn't show. When he obtained the soul ring, the effect of accumulating strength would appear. Although it had only been 10 days, Lin Feng was still deeply moved by this theory. He could feel that the soul power in his body had increased by quite a bit. And most importantly, the effects of his martial soul had increased slightly. But this wasn't important. The important thing was the issue of experience points. In these 10 days, Lin Feng discovered that the amount of experience points he gained every day was decreasing. And it wasn't a small decrease, but a large decrease. In the first few days, he could get thousands, but in the next few days, it was only a few hundred. Yesterday, it was only about 600. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul. 1000 Trickster Ruler, Immeasurable Flower Soul Power. Rank 10 Soul Ring. None experience. 8848 after 10 days, Lin Feng's experience points had reached more than 8,000. Don't think that it was a lot. It had to be known that this was including the martial soul training and physical training. Before his awakening, his physical training alone was more than 200 points. Now, his physical training was 4 to 5 times more than before. Including his martial soul training, he should be able to reach at least 1,000 points. But now, there were only 600 of them, and half of them were obtained through martial soul training. In terms of physical fitness, it was really too little. However, there was nothing he could do about it. The reason why the system gave him EXP was because Lin Feng's training could improve his physical fitness. However, due to the improvement of his physical fitness, the effects of his training began to decrease. In 10 days, it had decreased by more than half. It was estimated that after 1 or 2 months, Lin Feng's training would not increase his EXP. After all, by that time, Lin Feng's physical fitness would increase greatly, and this so-called training would be no different from walking for Lin Feng. It wasn't impossible to change this situation. Lin Feng had 2 ideas at the moment. First, continue to increase the intensity of the training. The simplest way was to increase the weight on his body. This way, the intensity of the training would increase. Second, engage in actual combat. As for the second, Lin Feng would not consider it for the time being. He also did not have the conditions to consider it. Currently, the only way to walk was to increase the weight. The weight of the weight was not better, as it needed a process of adaptation. Lin Feng had to start from the light weight and slowly increase it. Moreover, the most important point was that the weight of the equipment had to be coordinated. Otherwise, the training would be half the result with twice the effort. Metal equipment was not considered for the time being. That thing was too heavy, and he did not have the conditions to do so. Lin Feng's first choice was wrought tan. To be precise, Lin Feng wanted to make a wrought tan garment. There were many of these things in the forest. It was small and convenient to make into clothes. The most important thing was that the coordination was good, and it would not hinder various kinds of training. With his current figure, if he made a rattan garment that could cover his whole body, it would probably be close to 10 kilograms. And this weight was just right for his current situation. Without any delay, he did it as soon as he thought of it. After spending half a day and carefully weaving, a fitting, weighted rattan garment appeared. After weighing it, it was about 9 kilograms. After wearing it for training, the effect was significant. Although the increase of the experience points was still not as much as the first few days, it had recovered more than half. In the evening, Lin Feng, who had finished a day of training, was walking towards the village. He did not expect to meet Tang San at the door. To be precise, Tang San was waiting for Lin Feng. These days, Tang San had been forging at home. That was the task given by his father. After being busy for so long, and Lin Feng left early and returned late every day, he did not see him. For a moment, he missed Lin Feng very much. So today, he purposely waited. He did not have anything to do. He just wanted to chat or something. Xiao San, what's the matter? Lin Feng was still a little surprised to meet Tang San at the door. Like Tang San, Lin Feng was also super busy recently. He trained every day and even had very little time to eat, let alone have the leisure to look for Tang San. Nothing. I just haven't seen you in a long time, so I came to see you. Tang San shook his little head. Lin Feng tilted his head and walked towards a big tree on the left. As he walked, he said, "What have you been doing recently? Forging iron?" In the plot, Tang San should be currently learning special force techniques from his father to prepare for the wild hammering technique in the future. However, knowing that Tang San was forging was not a guess by Lin Feng. Every morning when he left the village, he would pass by Tang San and hear it. On the side, Tang San followed closely and nodded with a smile. "And my dad taught me how to forge iron. This way, even if I can't become a powerful soul master in the future, I can still make a living with the skill." Hearing this, Lin Feng smiled and did not say anything. "Fengge, what about you? I haven't seen you running these days in the morning. What have you been doing?" In the past, every morning when Tang San came back from cultivation, he would always see Lin Feng running. He did not expect that he would not be able to see him recently. "Me? I've been training recently." Lin Feng thought for a while and said, "Aren't you going to become a soul master soon? In order to be able to fight against soul beasts in the future, you have to start training now. Fengge, can you bring me along?" Tang San's small face was full of expectation. At this moment, in Tang San's eyes, Lin Feng was simply invincible in terms of knowledge regarding martial souls. If it were not for the age gap, he even had the intention to become Yi Shiwen's disciple. And the soul master training method that Lin Feng mentioned was, of course, very effective. "I'm afraid I can't do it recently, but I can do it a month later." Recently, Lin Feng had already planned his own training schedule. He did not have extra time to guide Tang San. "Okay, I'll come find you a month later." Coincidentally, Tang San did not have time now. He still had to finish forging that piece of pig iron. Chapter 11. After agreeing with Tang San for a month, Lin Feng began his training according to the plan. A month passed by quickly. This morning, in the secret base, Lin Feng, who was wearing rattan clothes and had iron rings on his limbs, was waving his wooden axe and practicing the basic chopping. After waving it for an unknown number of times, suddenly, as if reaching a critical point, the system's voice sounded. Ding! After a period of hard work, the host has mastered the basic axe technique. Experience points plus 100 sword, spear, knife, staff, axe. These 5 basic skills have been mastered. The next step is to practice the bow. Lin Feng did not say that he wanted to learn all of the 18 types of weapons. The most important thing was to learn the few common ones. As for the others, they were all optional. After more than 10 days, Lin Feng had mastered 5 basic skills, which was not bad. Putting down the wooden axe, Lin Feng grabbed the wooden bow at the side, then knocked an arrow and shot at the target made of rattan not far away. Chong! The wooden arrow sank more than 3 inches into the target, which was enough to show the strength of this arrow. But the accuracy was too bad, only hitting the 5 ring. One must know that this target was 2 meters wide, and Lin Feng was only 10 meters away from the target. To be able to shoot so far, other than the problem of the bow itself, his archery skills were simply too bad. And according to his previous experience, if he wanted to master the basic archery skills at a distance of 20 meters, he had to at least hit the target 9 times out of 10. Although this was a bit difficult for the current Lin Feng, it was just a small request. He estimated that he could reach this level in 3 days. After a month of physical training, Lin Feng's physical fitness was almost twice that of an ordinary adult. Take note, this was not just a physical fitness, but a comprehensive one. This was a very shocking level. In his previous life, those professional athletes had to spend several years of practice to reach a high level of physical fitness. From this, it could be seen how powerful Lin Feng was at this time. Of course, to be able to have such an effect, the main reason was that Lin Feng's martial spirit was too strong. The system's products must be of the highest quality. These two martial spirits were much stronger than ordinary martial spirits. Even the blue lightning tyrant dragon was far inferior to Lin Feng's martial spirit, not to mention the clear sky hammer, which was the strongest tool spirit. But now, Lin Feng's physical fitness had reached a small limit. Through ordinary training, it would not give him any more experience. Even if it was weight training, he now had nearly 30 pounds of weight on his body, and the experience gained from training was very little. Under such circumstances, even if he continued to increase the load, the increase in EXP would not be significant. If he wanted to break this stalemate, he would have to either obtain a soul ring or engage in actual combat. Putting aside the soul rings for now, I should have a chance in actual combat today. Just as he was thinking, Lin Feng heard light footsteps behind him. He instinctively turned around and drew his bow, pointing the arrow in that direction. Feng Ge, it's me. Tang Sen walked out from behind the tree without a trace of panic on his face. Xiao San, come quickly, let me introduce you. Lin Feng immediately put down the bow in his hand and welcomed him with a smile. With that, Lin Feng brought Tang San to tour the small base. With his introduction, Tang San quickly had a clear understanding of this place. In this month, Tang San had talked with Lin Feng many times. From their conversations, he also learned a lot about this place. But seeing it once was better than hearing it 100 times. Even if he had enough guesses before, after seeing it with his own eyes, Tang San was still very surprised by Lin Feng's base. These equipment had really opened his eyes. There were also all kinds of wooden weapons, which dazzled his eyes. Feng Ge was indeed someone who had seen the world. The things he made were indeed different. In Tang San's mind, these things were made by Lin Feng because he had seen a lot of things. He had never thought that these things did not exist in this world. Xiao San, try these things out as a warm-up. After the introduction, Lin Feng continued to practice his bow. In fact, in the beginning, Lin Feng had thought of hiding this place from Tang San. However, he rejected the idea the next day because he found the footprints of a stranger in the base. As for who the stranger was, it was not difficult to guess. This place was already very secluded. There were very few people here, and the villagers would not come here at all. Therefore, the person who came here could only be Tang San's father, Tang Hao. Today, Lin Feng asked Tang San to come over to make a good impression on Tang Hao. In the original work, during the process of Tang San's growth, Tang Hao had secretly protected him for a period of time. Now that Lin Feng was on his good side, it was equivalent to buying insurance. Perhaps in the future, when Tang Hao saw that he was in danger, he would also help him. The process of archery practice was boring. It was to continuously repeat the 4 steps of grabbing an arrow, drawing the bow, aiming, and shooting the arrow. Lin Feng's willpower was already outstanding. After more than a month of practice, it had become much stronger. At this time, even if the training was boring, he did not complain at all. Compared to Lin Feng's boring training, Tang San next to him was very happy. These equipment were like toys to Tang San. While playing with them, they also achieved the effect of training. Lin Feng was very envious of him. He could kill many birds with 1 stone. In the blink of an eye, the morning passed. After lunch, Lin Feng looked for Tang San to talk. Xiao San, you have to know that training is not about constant hard work. Practice is the fastest way to improve. Lin Feng said earnestly. As a spirit master, when you face a spirit beast in the future, the spirit beast won't just stand there and let you hit it. Therefore, increasing your combat experience is very necessary. Fengge, what do you mean? Tang Sen said with some uncertainty. That's right. Xiao San, you're really smart. You can even guess this. No, what did I guess? Tang Sen was confused. But soon, Lin Feng answered Tang San's doubts. Come on, we've been training for more than a month. Let's compare notes. This way, we can increase our combat experience. Lin Feng clenched his fists and looked eager. Fengge, this isn't good. Tang Sen hesitated. He wasn't afraid that he couldn't win, but he was afraid that he would injure Lin Feng. After more than a month of blacksmithing practice, Tang San's strength had improved by leaps and bounds. He was stronger than an ordinary adult, coupled with his cultivation of internal strength. If he punched Lin Feng with all his strength, it might be a serious injury. As for controlling his strength, he didn't dare. Although Lin Feng had been shooting arrows in the morning, Tang Sen could still see that Lin Feng's strength was too great. He could pull the bow to its fullest with a casual pull, and the arrow he shot could probably pierce through a person. If he held back his strength when sparring with such strength, he would be the one injured. Therefore, Tang San was a little hesitant at this time. P.S. This book has been signed. The new book will be updated twice a day, at 12 a.m. and 6 p.m. respectively. I hope that everyone will vote to encourage the author. Chapter 12. Don't worry, don't be afraid. I can heal myself. Nothing will happen. With that, Lin Feng flipped his hand, and the immeasurable flower appeared in his hand. My martial soul can emit vitality to heal injuries. It's very useful. Lin Feng lowered his body slightly, and the immeasurable flower in his hand emitted a faint black light. In the next second, the few strands of blue silver grass on the ground seemed to have eaten a great tonic and grew crazily. After a few seconds, these strands of grass grew a few centimeters tall. It was very magical. Fengge, your martial soul is too powerful. Tang San's little face was full of shock, and his mouth was slightly open. Tang San had tried to use martial souls himself, not to mention the clear sky hammer. Although it was very powerful, it consumed a lot of soul power when it was used, and he didn't have enough strength to control it at the moment. As for the blue silvergrass, even if Tang San used the soul power in his body to drive it, he could only make it longer and tougher. This kind of effect, compared to Lin Feng's, was simply heaven and earth. The difference was too big. It's SOSO. Mine should be an auxiliary type martial soul. In the future, its combat power will be very low, the weakest kind. No one can beat it. Hearing this, Tang San instantly thought of the scene in the morning when Lin Feng casually drew his bow to the fullest. So much strength, but weak combat power? No one can beat it. Come. Let's start. Lin Feng was a little impatient. Okay. Tang San nodded slightly. In fact, he also wanted to spar, but he had been apprehensive before. Now that there were no more worries, he could let go of his hands and feet. I announced that the Holy Soul Village's first Soul Master Tournament officially begins. It was just a simple exchange of pointers, but Lin Feng made it seem like a ritual. But ceremony was ceremony. The moment she finished speaking, the two of them quickly entered the state and stared at each other. They were clearly just two little brats about 2 meters tall, but when they confronted each other, it actually gave people a faint sense of oppression. Xiao San, I'm going to make a move. Lin Feng couldn't hold himself back and made the first move. He leaned forward and hugged his arms, trying to lock Tang San in place. In Lin Feng's mind, he could crush Tang San right now. After all, the quality of his body should be comparable to a soul grandmaster who didn't use soul skills. However, the actual situation was beyond Lin Feng's expectations. In the face of this hug, Tang San stepped slightly to the side and easily dodged. At the same time, he struck out with his palm, directly hitting Lin Feng's waist. Thud! Thud! Lin Feng lost his balance and was forced to take 2 steps back. Without thinking too much, Lin Feng quickly stabilized his body and continued to attack, throwing out a punch. However, The result was the same. Just as the fist was about to hit Tang San, he gently moved his feet again and dodged the attack. The ghost shadow perplexing track footwork was good at dodging. At close range, unless Lin Feng's speed was much faster than Tang San's or his timing was precise, it would be very difficult to hit him. Tang San counterattacked again, punching towards Lin Feng's arm. After suffering the first time, Lin Feng was already prepared this time. He immediately lowered his body and swept out with his left leg. Tang San's reaction was very fast. The moment Lin Feng's leg came out, he turned into a claw and grabbed the back of Lin Feng's calf. Controlling crane capturing dragon was the Tang Sek's capturing technique. It had the effect of using 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds. It could dissipate force and turn attacks into nothing. Before Lin Feng could react, Tang San rushed forward. At the same time, he used his right hand to grab Lin Feng's left hand and threw him into the air. Finally, he spiraled to the ground. Bang! Lin Feng fell to the ground, slightly stunned. What has happened? How did he suddenly fly into the air? Fengge, are you okay? Tang San immediately came over and helped Lin Feng up. I'm fine. After Lin Feng stood up, he still could not believe it. Before the sparring, Lin Feng had taken off all his weights. Moreover, he did not go easy on him at all. He went all out. However, he was defeated after only 2 moves. Lin Feng had nothing to say about this. This made him deeply aware of his own shortcomings, and at the same time, he understood something. The strength of one's physical fitness did not represent the level of one's combat power. Lin Feng was sure that his current physical fitness was much stronger than Tang San's. It should be 5 times stronger than his. The reason why he was defeated so easily was because he lacked experience and skills. Whether it was controlling crane, capturing dragon, or ghost shadow perplexing track, these things were a kind of technique to use the body. These systematic martial arts could allow people to quickly master unique and powerful skills and more efficiently exert their own strength. As for Lin Feng, his skills could be said to be 0. During the sparring, just now, he was using tortoise punches, so it was reasonable for him to be defeated. It was very easy to defeat Tang San. As the saying went, a strong person could defeat 10 skilled people, and a strong person could create miracles. As long as the fist was big enough, no matter what skills you had, I could beat you until you had no skills. However, it was obvious that Lin Feng could not do this in a short time. In that case, there was only one other path left, and that was to constantly look for Tang San to beat him up. He would beat him up every day, several times a day. After a few days of fighting, Lin Feng's skills would improve rapidly. Coupled with the gradual increase in his combat experience, it was only a matter of time before he defeated Tang San. Ding! After a useless battle, the host's actual combat experience has increased slightly. Experience points plus 20. Sure enough, fighting would increase the experience points. Lin Feng guessed correctly. Thinking about it, Lin Feng immediately said, Xiao San, we should spar more in the future. At this time, if Lin Feng said that he wanted to learn martial arts, Tang San might not directly teach him the mysterious heaven skill, but he should still teach him some skills to use force. However, Lin Feng did not say anything. He wanted to learn, practice, and comprehend by himself. Perhaps this would waste some time, but the degree of comprehension would be deeper, and the improvement of his strength would be greater. Okay, Fengge. Tang San nodded. Having someone to spar with was not only beneficial to Lin Feng, but also to Tang San, so he did not think of objecting at all. Your strength is still a little weak. Train well. I'll go practice archery first. After patting Tang San's shoulder, Lin Feng went to practice archery. Tang San was slightly speechless where he stood. With my strength, you call me weak? It's because you're too strong, Fengge. If I didn't have the mysterious heaven treasure record, I would have been subdued just now. However, Fengge was right. His physical fitness still had a lot of room for improvement. He had to train well in the remaining month. Even if he could not reach Fengge's level, he could at least increase it by 20 to 30%. Right, Fengge said before that in addition to equipment training, there was also a super training method. It was like doing 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and 100 sit-ups every day and running 10 kilometers. Chapter 13. This super training method was called the bald head training method by Lin Feng. Tang San racked his brains, but still couldn't figure out what the bald head had to do with it. However, this method was effective. According to Lin Feng, it could greatly improve a person's physical fitness in a short period of time. It was Tang San's first time undergoing this type of training, so he wasn't prepared physically or mentally. However, this guy's willpower was firm. Without Lin Feng's help, he actually completed the training by himself. In the evening, at the edge of the forest, Lin Feng smiled and helped Tang San up when he saw him lying on the ground after running 10 kilometers. Not bad. He didn't say much and only praised him. As he spoke, the immeasurable flower in Lin Feng's hand emitted light, allowing Tang San's physical strength to recover a little. Feng Gu, your martial soul is really powerful. Not only can it heal injuries, but it can also eliminate fatigue. Tang San couldn't hide the envy on his face. It's not that strong. In the future, you'll just be an auxiliary-type soul master. You won't be able to become strong. Lin Feng said that he was low-key, but the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. Okay, today's training will end here. Go back and continue tomorrow. Okay. In the following days, Lin Feng spent his days either training or sparring. As for Tang San, he didn't train every day. He still needed to spend a lot of time at his father's place to learn blacksmithing. However, the two of them would take time out to spar a few times every day. Just like that, more than a month's time passed quickly. Tomorrow, Nodding Elementary Soul Master Academy would hold their opening ceremony. Today, Tang San and Lin Feng would head to the academy to report. Early in the morning, shortly after dawn, Tang San and Lin Feng arrived at the village entrance. Little Feng, I think it's a bit dangerous for the two of you to go. How about I send you off? In fact, Lin Feng had already told old Jack yesterday that he and Tang San would go together. There would be no problems on the way. At that time, old Jack had agreed. Unexpectedly, when he woke up in the morning, he was still worried. Seeing this, Lin Feng immediately said, "Grandpa Jack, don't worry. Xiao San and I are both soul masters. Nothing will happen." Old Jack also knew how powerful Lin Feng was, but the two children were really too young. When they were about to separate, he subconsciously said this sentence. Right. Both of you are soul masters, not ordinary people. Look at these old bones of mine, I almost forgot. After saying that, old Jack chuckled. On the continent of Douluo, the two words soul master held too much weight for ordinary people like old Jack. At this moment, when Lin Feng mentioned the two words soul master, in addition to remembering Lin Feng's steady performance, old Jack's previous worries disappeared. Then little Feng, Xiao San, hurry up and go. School starts tomorrow, don't be late. Old Jack waved his hand and said with a smile, "Okay, bye, Grandpa Jack. I'll come back to see you during the holidays and bring you good things from the city." Old Jack had been very fond of Lin Feng for the past few years. Lin Feng was a little reluctant to part with him now that he was about to leave. "You stinking brat, go to school properly. Don't think about this and that. I'm doing well in the village. Don't worry about me." After pausing, old Jack said with a face full of expectation, "Our sacred soul village hasn't produced a soul master for a long time. This time, there are two, and both of them have innate full soul power. Grandpa is proud of you. Xiao San, little Feng, Grandpa knows that both of you are good children. You must study well in the future and strive to become powerful soul masters." Yes, Tang San and Lin Feng nodded in agreement. "Let's go. Don't delay your school time," old Jack urged again. "Bye, Grandpa Jack." The two of them waved their small hands and walked towards Nodding City together. After a while, they came to a corner. If they walked forward from here, they would be on the main road and would no longer be able to see the Sacred Soul Village. Lin Feng took a deep look at the Sacred Soul Village and memorized it in his heart. Then, he no longer lingered and stepped onto the main road. Tang San, on the other hand, paused slightly as if he was waiting for something. After a few seconds, he sighed softly and followed Lin Feng. Have you heard of the phrase, a father's love is like a mountain? Just as they approached, Lin Feng said this sentence. Without waiting for Tang San to speak, Lin Feng continued, a father's love is like a mountain, silent and heavy. Uncle Hao, have you been drinking less these few months? Did you wake up earlier than before? Yes. Tang San nodded subconsciously. Then shouldn't Uncle Hao wake up at this time today? Tang San was not an idiot. On the contrary, he was a peerless genius with an exquisite heart. At this time, although Lin Feng did not say it clearly, Tang San had already thought it through. He originally thought that his father could oversleep at such an important time today because he did not like him. Now, it seemed that his father loved him too much. He could not bear to leave, so he deliberately pretended to be unable to sleep. Seeing Tang San's enlightened expression, Lin Feng said lightly, do you understand now? Yes. Tang San nodded fiercely, his small eyes full of admiration for Lin Feng. For more than a month before, Tang San would spar with Lin Feng more than 3 times a day. In the beginning, Tang San always won. Unexpectedly, in just 5 days, Tang San lost to Lin Feng because of carelessness. Then, in the following days, Lin Feng gradually won more and more. Until 10 days ago, Tang San could not beat Lin Feng at all. It was not that he could not win because he was suppressed, but because he was crushed. Unless Tang San used a hidden weapon with extremely high destructive power, he had no chance of winning. In just more than a month, Tang San watched Lin Feng go from a novice who did not know any martial arts to an expert who could beat him up. Of course, the main reason was that Lin Feng's physical fitness was too strong. In terms of martial arts, he was not as good as Tang San. But even so, it was not difficult to see how abnormal Lin Feng's talent was. Not only was his talent so strong, but now, with just a few words, he could change his mood. Fengge was too powerful. He was really impressed. Nodding City was not far from the Holy Spirit Village. Lin Feng and Tang San arrived after walking for almost half a day. Nodding City was not a big city, but because it was located at the border of the Heaven Do Empire, the city walls were built very thick. Walking into the city, Lin Feng did not feel anything. He had seen skyscrapers in modern cities, so this kind of Western-style building, which was not very tall, made him feel ordinary. Tang San was very curious. He rarely came to the city, so everything was new to him. But while he was looking around, he also paid attention to one thing, and that was the location of the blacksmith shop. The school for working students did not provide for his meals. He had to earn money for his meals, so becoming an apprentice at the blacksmith shop was his best choice. Chapter 14. The Nodding Elementary Soul Master Academy was located in the west of Nodding City. Lin Feng asked around and found out the exact location. Then he brought Tang San there. On the way, Tang San said casually, Fengge, why don't you teach me when we reach the academy? I think the teachers in the academy don't know as much as you do. Xiao San, you're wrong. I heard some things, so I can tell you. I don't know much, but I've seen a lot. Besides, how big is the Holy Soul Village? At most, there are only 2 Soul Masters. You haven't even seen other Soul Masters, so how do you know that the teachers in the academy aren't as good as me? Xiao San, you have to remember that there's always someone better than you. Even the deacon of the Martial Spirit Hall doesn't know as much as you do, Tang San muttered softly. Didn't Fengge say that the Martial Spirit Hall was one of the top powers in the continent? That Su Yuntao didn't seem to know anything. Because of this, Tang San felt that Lin Feng knew a lot and should be better than the teachers in the academy. Lin Feng was at a loss for words for a moment. Then he said, Xiao San, the academy teaches very systematic and detailed things. Although it's very basic, as a soul master, both you and I must know it. Oh. Tang San nodded. Tomorrow is the opening ceremony. Hey, we're here. No matter where it was, the Soul Master Academy would always be one of the best buildings in the area. Nodding was clearly a small city, but the Elementary Soul Master Academy in front of him had the same grandeur as the universities in his previous life. There was a 20-meter wide arched door, and behind the door was a road that led straight to the interior. On both sides were tall trees. Upon closer inspection, The bricks used in the building were several grades better than the buildings on the road. In the center of the arched door, there were 4 large words, Nodding Academy. Fengge, how imposing! Tang Sen exclaimed. This is nothing. It's just an academy in a small city. If we're talking about grandeur, the Soul Master Academies in the big cities are much grander than this. Let's go. Lin Feng led Tang San towards the entrance of the academy. Just as the two of them reached the front door, a young man rushed out from the side. What are you two brats doing here? Students who are not from this academy are not allowed to enter. It was the start of the school term these few days, and there were often students who didn't wear the school uniform entering the school. Under normal circumstances, the gatekeeper wouldn't stop them. However, Lin Feng and Tang San's clothes were too shabby, especially Tang San's. There were even patches on his clothes. The gatekeeper immediately stopped them. Hearing this, Tang San glanced at Lin Feng and found that Lin Feng seemed to have suddenly fallen into some kind of deep thought. After thinking for a moment, he said, Hello, we're from the Holy Spirit Village. We're both Soul Masters and working students this year. Soul Masters? The gatekeeper's brows furrowed. A grass nest can produce a golden phoenix. A small village can produce 2 Soul Masters. Our academy hasn't had a working student for several years. You're not fakes, are you? Although the gatekeeper's words were questioning, his tone was very certain. After all, the probability of a village producing 2 Soul Masters was too low. Tang Sen wanted to argue, but Lin Feng waved his hand and stopped him. Interesting. Very interesting. Lin Feng inexplicably smiled. When Lin Feng came out from the gatekeeper's room, he felt that it was very interesting. It reminded him of something. In almost all of Douluo's doujin novels, the gatekeeper of Nodding Academy would always jump out and cause trouble. Then, Grandmaster would come out and accept Tang San as his disciple. Originally, he thought that since old Jack wasn't here, the story would change. He didn't expect the gatekeeper to jump out. But this time, Lin Feng thought of something interesting. Kid, what's so interesting about you? The gatekeeper glared at Tang Weilin. But before he could finish his sentence, Lin Feng kicked him in the stomach. The gatekeeper flew into the air and spun 360 degrees in the air. Finally, he screamed miserably and fell into the bushes. In the next second, Lin Feng pulled Tang San, who was still in a daze, and rushed into the school. Fengge, why are we running? Tang San was confused. There's no time to explain. Let's run first. Lin Feng looked around as he ran. After running for more than 100 meters, he stopped in front of a teaching building in the school. Even now, he was still looking around as if he was looking for someone. That's right, Lin Feng was looking for Grandmaster. He wanted to see what would happen if he didn't let Tang San meet Grandmaster. He wanted to see if the story would develop as it had before. But now, it seemed that Grandmaster didn't appear at the entrance. At least, that was a small change. But just as Lin Feng was thinking about this, a gentle voice came from behind them. Are you two the working students this year? Lin Feng and Tang San immediately turned around and saw a man of medium build, slightly thin. He was in his 40s or 50s, with short black hair and an ordinary appearance. His hands were behind his back, but there was something special about him. Lin Feng was puzzled. When did this guy show up? Why didn't he see him earlier? Also, this guy couldn't be Grandmaster, right? Yes. Lin Feng nodded. Then, he asked tentatively, Teacher, are you here to help us with the paperwork? Teacher? I'm not a teacher here, the middle-aged man said coolly, looking down at the two of them. You can call me Grandmaster. That's what everyone calls me. I've even forgotten my original name. Grandmaster continued. Show me the proof of your martial souls. If it's true, I'll take you to the paperwork. Grandmaster had his own information network in the Martial Spirit Hall. Not long ago, he'd learned that 2 working students with innate full soul power would be coming to Nodding Academy. So he'd been waiting near the entrance for the past few days. His goal was to take these 2 as his disciples. Lin Feng raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. He handed the proof of his martial souls to Grandmaster. At the same time, he sighed inwardly. He really is a Grandmaster. It seems that Tang San won't be able to run away from him. As for himself, Lin Feng had no intention of becoming Grandmaster's disciple. Grandmaster took the proof, a smile appearing on his calm face. Then he said casually, "By the way, you can't call me teacher casually, unless—" Grandmaster paused, then his eyes shone with a scorching light. "Unless you're really willing to let me be your teacher. Are you going to teach us how to cultivate our martial souls?" Tang Sen asked. Grandmaster looked at the two of them and analyzed their expressions. Then he smiled and asked, "Are you willing?" As he spoke, his gaze fell on Tang Sen. Chapter 15. The master had a good eye for people. He could tell that the matter of acknowledging him as a master was not something that could be easily resolved. Lin Feng didn't seem to have any thoughts at all, but Tang Sen had a little hope. Therefore, at this moment, the master's gaze was more focused on Tang Sen as he spoke. Of course, this was only temporary. The master was confident that in the following conversation, he would use his unique understanding of martial souls to convince the two of them. Since the master can be called a master, then he must be a very powerful person. Tang Sen hesitated slightly and said, "But regarding the matter of apprenticeship," hearing this, the master didn't immediately speak. Instead, he looked at Lin Feng, wanting to hear what he had to say. However, Lin Feng didn't say a word and just quietly stared at the master. Seeing this, the master sighed slightly. As expected of two smart children, two innate full soul power, and both are so smart. One has a mutated martial soul, and the other is the third twin martial soul in 100 years. So, I have to be persistent for once. Hearing this, Tang Sen immediately became vigilant. He subconsciously raised his left hand slightly, waiting for the opportunity to shoot the arrow in his sleeve. At the side, Lin Feng didn't feel anything and continued to watch calmly. Lin Feng still had a good impression of the master. Although he didn't want to be apprenticed, now that he wanted to accept Tang Sen as his disciple, Lin Feng wouldn't undermine him or anything. After all, to Tang Sen, being apprenticed to the master was the best outcome. You're curious how I saw through it, right? The master flicked the two martial soul certificates in his hand. It's because of these two certificates. Maybe other people can't see the flaw, but if I can't see through it, then I don't deserve the title of master. After a pause, the master slowly said, "I once investigated more than 600 people with the blue-silver grass martial soul. Among them, only 16 had soul power, less than 3%, and none of them had soul power beyond the first rank. According to one of the 10 core competencies of martial souls that I've researched, innate soul power is directly proportional to the quality of the martial soul. Blue-silver grass obviously doesn't fit the condition of having innate full spirit power. Therefore, Xiao San, you must have another martial soul in your body. But Xiao Feng, I've never seen this little black flower of yours before, so I deduce that it's a variant martial spirit, and it must be very powerful." These words made Tang Sen nod inwardly. No wonder Feng Ji's martial soul was so powerful. Not only could it heal injuries, it could also expel fatigue. It was much stronger than his useless blue-silver grass. It turned out that it was a variant. Although he thought so, Tang Sen said, "There are exceptions to everything. Why can't I be an exception?" The Grandmaster nodded seriously. "That's right, there are exceptions to everything. However, your blue-silver grass is clearly not an exception. In the past 100 years, only 2 people with twin martial souls have appeared in the 2 great empires. However, there are 19 people with innate full spirit power. Not one of them wasn't a powerful existence. Even the weakest had reached the soul Grandmaster realm. Among them, 4 of them weren't of noble birth, but they also had innate full spirit power. In this case, they were the same as Xiao Feng, a variant martial spirit. But your blue-silver grass isn't a variant martial spirit. Therefore, I dare say that you have twin martial souls." Hearing these words, it could be said that Tang San was completely convinced. In fact, he had also asked Lin Feng about twin martial souls, but Lin Feng's explanation was very general. However, the Grandmaster's words were a detailed explanation. One must know that Lin Feng's general explanation had already made Tang San admire him. Now, The Grandmaster's explanation was extremely thorough. He even used different examples to prove his words. In Tang San's heart, he must worship this Grandmaster. Thinking, Tang San took a step back. Suddenly, he knelt on the ground and respectfully kowtowed 3 times to the Grandmaster. "Teacher, please accept me as your disciple." The Grandmaster hurriedly helped Tang San up. "Silly boy, why kowtow when acknowledging a Grandmaster? This is a great gift for acknowledging a Grandmaster and parents. You only need to bow when acknowledging a Grandmaster." Tang San shook his head and solemnly said, "A teacher for a day, a father for life. You should receive my kowtowing." Seeing this, the Grandmaster was slightly moved and said good 3 times. "It seems that I really didn't make the wrong choice. Xiao San, you really are a good child." For a moment, the Grandmaster and disciple had deep feelings for each other. Lin Feng, who was standing at the side, seemed to be somewhat out of place. At this time, Tang San thought of Lin Feng. He turned his head and said, "Feng Gu, aren't you looking for a Grandmaster like this Grandmaster as your teacher?" The Grandmaster also turned his head to look at Lin Feng. His eyes were filled with slight expectation. Regarding Lin Feng, who had a mutated martial spirit, the Grandmaster also wanted to accept him as his disciple. However, he could see that even after a discussion of theory, the other party was not moved at all. Sure enough, Lin Feng quickly shook his head. "I don't have any plans to acknowledge a Grandmaster as my master. The purpose of coming to the academy is only to learn the basic knowledge of martial spirits." "All right, I won't force you." The Grandmaster did not force him. He smiled and said, "If you encounter any problems in the future, you can come and ask me. I still have confidence in my knowledge of martial spirits." Thank you, Grandmaster." Lin Feng sincerely said a word of thanks. The Grandmaster was still broad-minded. One must know that in the entire Douluo continent, the Grandmaster could be said to be the person who understood martial spirits the best. Furthermore, the Grandmaster himself also had this confidence. For a person like him, even if he was not recognized by others, the pride in his heart would not be little. For him to be able to so easily set aside his thoughts of accepting Lin Feng as his disciple, one had to admit that he was very broad-minded. "Let's go. I'll take you to the Academic Affairs office." The Grandmaster was in a good mood after accepting Tang San as his disciple. The Academic Affairs office was located on the first floor of the main teaching building. The 3 of them quickly arrived at the office. An old man and 2 young men in their 30s were responsible for receiving the new students. The Grandmaster placed 2 martial spirit certificates in front of the old man. "Director Su, these are the 2 working students sent by the Sacred Spirit Village this year. The Martial Spirit Hall's deacon, Su Yuntao, greeted us earlier. I'll have to trouble you to register them." With the Grandmaster accompanying them, the registration process was completed quickly. The 2 received their uniforms and were assigned to the 7th dormitory. In the original work, the young teacher beside Director Su had ridiculed the Grandmaster. However, with Lin Feng here, everyone's attention was drawn to his innate full spirit body. Tang San's innate full spirit body wasn't a trash martial spirit, but a genuine support type innate full spirit body. For such a student to appear in their nodding academy, Director Su and the other 2 teachers rushed to accept him as their disciple. After all, his innate full spirit body was simply too powerful. In the future, he would at least become a soul ancestor or soul king. Who would want such a good disciple? However, as soon as they spoke, Lin Feng mercilessly rejected them. "I'm not going to take any teachers. You don't have to say anything." These few simple words shut the 3 of them up immediately. Chapter 16. After completing the admission procedures, the Grandmaster parted ways with the 2. Before leaving, the Grandmaster reminded Lin Feng that it would be best for him to find a teacher in the academy. Otherwise, he'd have to hire someone to hunt soul beasts for him to obtain a soul ring. Lin Feng smiled and told the Grandmaster not to worry about it. He didn't mention the matter of finding a teacher at all. The Grandmaster shook his head and didn't say anything else. In fact, there was one more thing he didn't say. If Lin Feng didn't find a teacher, he could help Lin Feng get a soul ring while he took Tang's sand to obtain one. But there was no need to say this now. The Grandmaster felt that Lin Feng was inexplicably arrogant, so he decided to grind down Lin Feng's arrogance. But the Grandmaster didn't know what kind of power Lin Feng possessed. The dormitory building wasn't difficult to find. There was only one building, so it was easy to find. All the students and teachers of the academy lived here. The 7th dormitory was the worst dormitory in the building. It was also the only dormitory where all the working students lived regardless of their grade. Because the academy hadn't had working students for several years, the 7th dormitory was filled with senior students. As soon as the two entered the 7th dormitory, the eldest of the 7 working students, Wang Sheng, ran over. "You two little guys are the new working students this year." Hearing this, Lin Feng only glanced at Wang Sheng indifferently. Then, he immediately shifted his gaze to the place where Wang Sheng would be living in the next few years, ignoring him completely. Wang Sheng was irritated by this scene, and his eyes flashed with hostility. But then Tang Sin spoke up. "Hello, we're both working students from the Holy Spirit Village. I'm Tang San, and he's Lin Feng." Hearing this, Wang Sheng's face looked better. He immediately said, "You two, listen carefully. I'm Wang Sheng, and my martial soul is the War Tiger. I'm a future soul warrior and the boss of this place. You have to listen to me from now on, got it?" These harsh words were pretty standard, and they were rather well formatted. But obviously, the two of them didn't buy it. Tang Sin just stared at Wang Sheng with a faint smile. Lin Feng was even more outrageous. He ignored Wang Sheng and walked inside. It seemed that he was going to choose his bed. The 7th house was quite big. It was more than 200 square meters, and there were dozens of beds inside. It looked very spacious. However, most of these beds were empty. Only 11 beds had bedding on them, which corresponded to the 11 students standing in front of him. At first glance, Lin Feng took a liking to the innermost bed by the window. "Xiao San, the innermost one is not bad. I'll choose it." With that, Lin Feng walked over there. At this time, Wang Sheng's face became more and more ugly. Finally, he said angrily, "Brat, you're too arrogant. You really don't put me in your eyes. You didn't even answer my question. Looks like I'll have to teach you a lesson." Wang Sheng growled and threw a punch at Lin Feng's back. Lin Feng walked in unhurriedly, as if he hadn't noticed the situation at all. However, he still said indifferently, "Little 3, your brother Feng, this weak auxiliary-type soul master, is about to be bullied. Why aren't you coming to save him?" Although he didn't know what saving him meant, Tang Sin obviously wouldn't let Lin Feng get hurt. "I'm coming." After responding, Tang San immediately made his move. He arrived in front of Wang Sheng and grabbed him. Then, with a light tug, he threw Wang Sheng away. Wow, the boss was sent flying. This scene stunned everyone in the dormitory. They hadn't expected the new working student to be so strong. "Brat, you pissed me off." Wang Sheng couldn't keep his face and directly used his martial soul. His body emitted a faint yellow light, and in an instant his physical strength increased by a large margin. His hands formed into claws, and he leaped forward like a fierce tiger, pouncing straight at Tang San. Tang San didn't panic. His hands formed into claws, and as he dodged the pouncing attack, he grabbed Wang Sheng's wrists with both hands. In the next second, Tang San used the same trick again and sent Wang Sheng flying again. Wow, the boss was sent flying again. The others in the dormitory exclaimed. As for Lin Feng, he didn't pay attention to this predetermined battle. He had already arrived at the bed by the window. Not bad. The view is good. Opening the window, he saw several tall cypress trees outside. Through the trees, he could see a small square with a fountain in the middle. Lin Feng was quite satisfied with the scenery here. Seeing that Tang San was constantly on the defensive and not taking the initiative to attack, Lin Feng was a little unhappy. "Xiao San, hurry up. We're going to eat soon." Lin Feng was a little hungry. He was waiting for the meal. Hearing this, Tang San's eyes narrowed, and his entire temperament changed. In the next second, before Wang Sheng could even react, he was sent flying by Tang San's punch. He fell outside the door of his 7th house and was in so much pain that he couldn't get up for a while. "Boss, are you okay?" The others immediately rushed out and helped Wang Sheng inside. After entering, Wang Sheng broke free from the other support and struggled to stand in front of Tang San, which made Tang San secretly wary. He thought to himself, this guy is too unappreciative. The gap between us is so obvious. Can't he see it? Unexpectedly, in the next second, Wang Sheng bowed and said, Tang San, you are stronger than me. From now on, you're the boss of the dormitory. I am willing to submit to you. The others also bowed and said in unison, Boss. Hey, no, what's going on? Tang San had never experienced this before. For a moment, he was at a loss. He looked back at Lin Feng for help. Lin Feng smiled and said nothing. He continued to look out the window. At this moment, a clear voice came from the door of the dormitory. Is this the dormitory? Everyone, including Lin Feng, turned their heads at the same time and looked at the door. They saw a pretty little girl standing at the door. Her small face was pink and very cute. She was about the same age and height as Tang San. She had a long scorpion braid, and a pair of big watery eyes were full of curiosity. Although her clothes were very simple, she looked very neat. The students in the dormitory were all stunned. Tang San was slightly absent-minded. He had never seen such a cute girl. Lin Feng's eyes were full of scrutiny and curiosity. Was this Xiao Wu, who was transformed from a 100,000-year soul beast? What a cute girl. At the same time, Lin Feng observed carefully, trying to find something. However, after looking for a long time, even Xiao Wu noticed him. Lin Feng still didn't find anything. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 17. Under the instigation of Wang Sheng and his roommates, the new boss of the 7 dormitories, Tang San, wanted to show his power to Xiao Wu. The final result was not unexpected. It was similar to the original work. Tang San lost to Xiao Wu, and the new boss of the 7 dormitories, Sister Xiao Wu, was born. Wang Sheng and his roommates immediately turned into Sister Xiao Wu's followers and shouted at Lin Feng. The newcomer over there, what are you doing? Come and greet Sister Xiao Wu. Well, do you admit defeat? If you don't, let's have a fight. Xiao Wu had no other thoughts at this time. She just thought that fighting and being the boss were very interesting. As soon as these words came out, everyone was looking forward to it. Tang San thought, Fengge, I was careless and lost just now. You must get back at her for me. Beat her up for me. However, Lin Feng walked over slowly and said with a chuckle, I'm just a weak auxiliary-type soul master. I don't like fighting and killing. Lin Feng didn't refuse, accept, or agree. It seemed that his words were just to show his neutral position. Others didn't think much of it, but Tang San ridiculed him in his heart. Fengge flaunted himself as an auxiliary-type soul master all day long. His fighting power was terrible, but when it came to fighting, he was absolutely fierce. If you can't beat her, just say it. Don't make excuses, Xiao Wu said casually. But as she spoke, she suddenly met Lin Feng's calm eyes. At that moment, Xiao Wu felt that she had been seen through, as if Lin Feng already knew her identity. This made her feel weak at once. She immediately changed the topic and said, Well, who can tell me about the situation of the academy? No one found anything, so Wang Sheng immediately explained the situation of the academy. During this time, Xiao Wu kept peeping at Lin Feng. After finding that he didn't pay attention to her, she gently breathed a sigh of relief. Illusion? It was indeed an illusion. How could it be seen through? It was only then that Xiao Wu began to listen carefully to Wang Sheng's description of the school. The academy usually has 2 classes every morning. One is about cultural knowledge, and the other is about martial souls. In the afternoon, the academy says it's self-cultivation, but we working students are actually assigned some work in the afternoon in exchange for some money for our meals. As they were talking, a teacher in his 30s walked in from the entrance of the 7th dormitory. He was carrying 2 new bedding. My name is Mo Hen. You can call me Teacher Mo. Who is Tang San and Lin Feng? This is the bedding given by the master. Hearing this, Lin Feng thought to himself, this master is really considerate, saving him the trouble of going out to buy a new one later. After receiving the bedding, Mo Hen glanced at Xiao Wu and continued, You must be Xiao Wu. You, Lin Feng, and Tang San are all first-year working students. From now on, you'll be responsible for the cleaning of the garden on the south side of the field. Each of you will be paid 10 copper soul coins a day. You must be diligent, or your wages will be deducted. After explaining a few more things to take note of in the academy and the opening ceremony tomorrow, Mo Hen left. Seeing that Lin Feng and Tang San both had bedding, Xiao Wu felt a bit awkward. Wang Sheng's minions immediately grabbed their bedding and offered it to Xiao Wu. However, the bedding was so dirty that Xiao Wu would not accept it at all. Only the bedding in the hands of Tang San and Lin Feng could attract her attention. At this time, Lin Feng had already turned around to make the bed. Xiao Wu subconsciously looked at Tang San. Tang San, let's talk about it. Talk about what? Tang San was stunned. The two of them spoke in a low voice, and Lin Feng couldn't hear them as they slowly walked away. Anyway, when he finished making the bed, he turned around and saw that Xiao Wu and Tang San's beds were already side by side. Xiao San, this guy, has been lucky since he was a child. Of course, there was no such thing as envy. Lin Feng didn't say anything and directly walked towards the door. Let's go, Xiao San, it's time to eat. Tang San heard this and hurriedly followed, while the others followed after looking at each other. On the way from the dormitory to the cafeteria, they had to pass by the field. The opening ceremony was tomorrow, so there were already many students on the field. At first glance, there were boys and girls, and they gave off a feeling of youthful vitality. The school cafeteria was divided into 2 floors. On the first floor, there was a big pot of rice. The food was a little worse, but the price was relatively cheaper. On the second floor, there was a high-class area where you could order individual dishes, but the price was much higher. Of course, they couldn't afford to go to the second floor, so they could only eat on the first floor. It had to be said that the working students were a disadvantaged group in the school. Just walking on the field, Lin Feng saw some students pointing at them. As soon as they entered the cafeteria, someone mocked Wang Sheng. Xiao Wu, with her bad temper, was about to teach the person a lesson, but she was stopped by Wang Sheng. Sister Xiao Wu, that guy is Xiao Qinyu, a 6th grade student and an 11th grade soul warrior. We can't beat him. Hearing this, Lin Feng remembered that this guy was the son of the mayor. Because of his noble birth, he had a strong sense of class and looked down on poor people like them. Therefore, in the school, Xiao Qinyu and those who gathered around him often made things difficult for the working students, sometimes even resorting to violence. By the time he thought of this, Xiao Qinyu's small group had already reached the second floor. This small episode didn't bother them, so they quickly ate on the first floor. After that, Tang San was called by the master, and Lin Feng went straight to the school library to learn all kinds of basic knowledge about soul masters. It had to be said that even though Nodding Academy was only an elementary soul master academy, the collection of books in the library was still very rich. Walking into the library was like stepping into a sea of knowledge, and Lin Feng was like a sponge, crazily absorbing the knowledge here. It was mainly about how to identify soul beasts, and among them, 100-year and 1,000-year soul beasts were the most common. With a glance, he saw that the library was closed. Only when someone reminded him did Lin Feng leave reluctantly. Before leaving, he borrowed 2 books to read at night. After eating casually in the cafeteria, Lin Feng returned to the dormitory. At this time, there were not many people in the dormitory, only half of them. Tang San seemed to be tired and was sound asleep at the moment, and Xiao Wu was nowhere to be seen. Lin Feng didn't care about the others and didn't even greet them. He walked straight to his bed, sat down, and continued to read. About half an hour later, Xiao Wu and the other half of the group returned. When they first entered, they were still a little noisy, but when Xiao Wu noticed that Lin Feng was looking at her, she suddenly lowered her voice. For some reason, Xiao Wu didn't dare to look at Lin Feng. Looking away, Xiao Wu immediately scanned the dormitory. When she saw that Tang San was sound asleep, her eyes lit up, and she immediately said, "Quiet down, everyone. Tang San is sleeping. Don't disturb him." As if she had found an excuse to speak softly, Xiao Wu's face showed a smile again, as if she was praising herself for being quick-witted. Lin Feng didn't react to this scene and continued to read with his head lowered. When the sky was completely dark, the students in the dormitory fell asleep one after another. Lin Feng also closed his book and laid on his bed. He recalled the knowledge that he had read today and memorized it all in his heart. After an unknown period of time, Lin Feng was suddenly startled by a sound. He turned his head and saw that Tang San and Xiao Wu had sneaked out of the dormitory. Yeah! A single man and a single woman sneaking out in the middle of the night. What else could happen? It must be a spar of martial arts. Chapter 18. When Xiao San and Xiao Wu went out to have a friendly spar, Lin Feng obviously didn't care. If he had the time, he might as well continue digesting the martial soul knowledge that he had read today. Just like that, Lin Feng fell asleep in a daze as he thought about it. He didn't wake up until the next morning. After waking up, Lin Feng immediately scanned the dormitory. Coincidentally, he discovered that Xiao San had also woken up at the same time. The two of them smiled at each other and quietly walked out of the dormitory together. Feng Gu, teacher is taking me to the soul hunting forest to obtain a soul ring today. He said that if you want to go, you can follow. He will also help you obtain a soul ring. After coming out, Tang San immediately mentioned this matter. He originally wanted to say it yesterday, but he didn't expect to fall asleep due to exhaustion. He only found the opportunity today. Hearing this, Lin Feng rejected without even thinking. No need. I will hunt soul beasts myself. Lin Feng definitely wanted to use his experience to strengthen his soul ring. In this way, the age of the soul ring had to be kept a secret. Therefore, Lin Feng definitely wouldn't let anyone bring him to hunt soul beasts. Feng Gu, soul beasts are very strong. Even the weakest 10-year soul beast isn't something that ordinary people can deal with. 100-year soul beasts are even stronger. Only soul grandmasters have the confidence to face them. Teacher said that with your mutated martial soul, it would be too wasteful if you only took a 10-year soul ring. If you follow him, he can guarantee that he will help you find a suitable 100-year soul ring. The difference between a 10-year soul ring and a 100-year soul ring was still very big. Whether it was soul skills or the increase in physical strength brought by the soul ring, they were all different. For the Grandmaster to be able to make such a guarantee, it was enough to show his attention to Lin Feng. In fact, the main reason why the Grandmaster made such a guarantee was because Tang San said a lot of good things in front of him. Otherwise, even if the Grandmaster brought Lin Feng along, at most, he would just casually kill a soul beast for him. As for whether it was suitable or not, he wouldn't guarantee its age. However, Lin Feng had his own thoughts. Lin Feng didn't want to accept the Master's kindness at all. Xiao San, don't worry. I have my own ideas about soul rings, and I'm confident. You don't have to worry about me. Just take care of yourself. Also, help me thank the Master. After saying that, Lin Feng asked Tang San to set off quickly and not let the Master wait for too long. All right, Feng Gu. Tang San nodded and left. Were soul beasts strong? Maybe. However, in the eyes of Lin Feng and Tang San, 100-year soul beasts weren't that strong. According to the Grandmaster, only a soul Grandmaster could deal with a 100-year soul beast, and Su Yuntao was a rank 26 soul Grandmaster. Back then, I thought he was pretty strong. But now, it seemed like he wasn't particularly strong. Tang San couldn't defeat Su Yuntao directly, but he could at least use hidden weapons to remain undefeated. 100-year soul beast, soul Grandmaster. Tang San at full strength equals soul Grandmaster. Didn't that mean that Tang San could defeat a 100-year soul beast? Then wouldn't Lin Feng, who was stronger than him, be able to beat up a 100-year soul beast? Of course, the 100-year soul beasts mentioned here were only 100-year soul beasts. A few 100-year soul beast was still very dangerous. Even so, Tang San believed that Lin Feng had the ability to hunt soul beasts alone, so he wasn't too worried. Soon, Tang San met up with the Master. Where's little Feng? The Master was stunned when he didn't see Lin Feng. Feng Gu said. After spending some time, Tang San roughly explained Lin Feng's situation. Feng Gu is very strong, much stronger than me. I'm not worried that something will happen to him. You're quite confident in him. The Master smiled and didn't say anything else. Lin Feng didn't come, which was out of his expectations. However, This also meant that Lin Feng's mutated martial soul was very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident. It was a pity that he would only be able to kill a 10-year soul beast. It definitely wouldn't be able to defeat a 100-year soul beast. The master's thoughts weren't wrong. After all, on the continent of Douluo, there had never been a soul master who didn't even have a single soul ring that could kill a 100-year soul beast alone. However, Lin Feng and Tang San couldn't be viewed with common sense. The two of them were both transmigrators. One had internal strength and hidden weapons, while the other was even more powerful and had a system that was beyond comprehension. Their existence was completely beyond the master's comprehension, so it was reasonable for him to make a wrong prediction. Ignoring Lin Feng, the master and Tang San quickly left the academy. After buying their supplies, they rented a carriage in the city and rushed towards the soul-hunting forest. The soul-hunting forest was a distance away from Notting City. It was about 400 miles away. Even if they took a carriage, it would still take them a day. Not long after the two of them left the city, Lin Feng, who had brought food and water and changed into a new set of clothes, also left the city quietly. He didn't have the money to rent a horse or carriage. Buying clothes, food, and water had almost exhausted all of Lin Feng's savings. He could only walk. As for the academy's opening ceremony today, Tang San didn't care, let alone Lin Feng. 400 miles, which was about 200 kilometers, was a straight-line distance. In reality, the distance was about 230 to 40 kilometers. Lin Feng rushed for half a day and rested for a night in a small village. He only arrived at the soul-hunting forest in the afternoon of the second day. The soul-hunting forest was a place where the Empire specialized in rearing spirit beasts for low-level spirit masters to obtain spirit rings. Because it required a lot of manpower and resources, there were only a few places in the entire continent. The entire forest was surrounded by a huge steel fence. The fence was more than 10 meters tall and looked extremely sturdy. The fence faced the forest and was embedded with a large number of spikes. Its purpose was to prevent spirit beasts from escaping. At the same time, to prevent others from sneaking in, there were only a few entrances for spirit masters to enter. The place where Lin Feng was at was one of those entrances. Outside the fence, a group of 100 soldiers in fine iron armor were patrolling back and forth. They held long spears in their hands and looked strict, giving off a stern feeling. Their purpose here was to deal with any unexpected situations. This was actually nothing. Their main purpose at the entrance was to prevent people from causing trouble, such as people who barged in without a warrant. If Lin Feng sneaked in, these people wouldn't be able to do anything to him. What he was afraid of was the Martial Soul Hall's patrol team in the Soul Hunting Forest. Those guys were all spirit masters, and the captain was even a spirit elder. They patrolled the Soul Hunting Forest and checked warrants at any time. If he was caught, he wouldn't have a good ending. When the Soul Hunting Forest was first built, there weren't many people living at the entrance. However, as time passed, a small town gradually formed here. At this moment, Lin Feng came to this small town while pondering. Warrant: group hunting agility-type spirit beasts. 1 support-type spirit master. 6 is equal to 1. Come quickly. We'll start when there are enough people. Rank 29 spirit master, leading a team to hunt 100-year spirit beasts. 1 with a warrant and 2 bosses will be able to finish in a day. As soon as he entered, Lin Feng heard the shouts of the surrounding spirit masters. It was noisy and felt like a market. However, when he listened carefully, it felt like he was playing a game in his previous life. It was very interesting. Chapter 19. Who's that brat? Why are you blocking the road? Are you looking for death? Suddenly, a loud shout came from behind Lin Feng, followed by the sound of horse hooves rapidly approaching. Because he was immersed in his memories of playing games in his previous life, Lin Feng accidentally stood in the middle of the road at the entrance of the town and blocked someone's path. Now that he was being scolded, he wasn't angry and immediately walked to the side. But at this moment, he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. Lin Feng didn't need to look to know that the person on the horse was using a whip to whip him. Lin Feng was instantly enraged. Hearing the sound, Lin Feng directly reached out with his right hand and firmly grabbed the whip. Then, he turned around, faced the other party, and fiercely pulled. The latter subconsciously tightened his grip on the whip, but he didn't expect Lin Feng to be so strong. He was actually pulled off the horse and fell to the ground like a dog, eating mud. At this moment, Lin Feng saw that this was a youth of about 15 or 16 years old. He was dressed gorgeously and looked like someone with status. Lin Feng looked at himself. Before entering the town, he had already turned his martial soul, the thousand trickster ruler, into a small white mask on his face. There weren't any soul power fluctuations from the mask, which completely violated the basic principles of martial souls. No one would know that this was Lin Feng's martial soul. Seeing the youth struggle to get up, Lin Feng thought that the other party would directly summon his martial soul and attack him. He was already prepared. But when the other party got up, he directly went into the favorite part of villains in novels, self-introduction. Damn it! I, Lin Hai, am the son of Carrie City Lord. My grandfather is an empire's count. You actually dare to hit me with a mask? Lin Hai was a soul master with a noble status, but his talent wasn't very good. He had just reached rank 10 at the age of 16. This time, he came to Soul Hunting Forest to obtain his first soul ring. Because of his status, Lin Hai was used to being a tyrant in Carrie City. Normally, even soul masters wouldn't dare to offend him. After all, the city lord of Carrie City was a rank 56 soul king. In fact, before coming to the Soul Hunting Forest, the accompanying soul grandmaster had warned Lin Hai not to act like a young master in the Soul Hunting Forest. Who would have thought that something like this would happen in the end? Hit you? No, I'm going to kick you. Lin Feng took a step forward and was about to kick him. He wanted to teach this brat who had never been beaten by society a lesson. He was really a little angry. This guy was too overbearing. He had already stepped aside, but he still used the whip to whip people. At this moment, a middle-aged man in his 40s shouted as he ran over from behind. Little friend, please show mercy. His name was Zhang Xiao, and he was the captain of the guards of the Carrie City Lord Mansion. He was a rank 29 soul warrior and was very strong. This time, he came to the Soul Hunting Forest specifically to help Lin Hai obtain a soul ring. He had seen everything that had happened just now. If Lin Hai hadn't been so playful and rushed into the town on his horse, this wouldn't have happened. He wanted to stop him, but he was too far away and was one step too slow. Lin Hai had already collided with a masked young friend. Oh! Lin Feng saw that Zhang Xiao's strength wasn't simple. He should have the strength of a soul grandmaster, so he stopped for a moment. However, this matter couldn't be let go so easily. He wasn't afraid of soul grandmaster. Lin Feng questioned, give me a reason to show mercy. Otherwise, this brat should be beaten up today. Lin Feng purposely raised his voice to make him sound like a teenager. Hearing this, Zhang Xiao first whispered something to Lin Feng, then looked at Lin Feng. My family's young master made a mistake first. I, Zhang Xiao, will apologize to you on behalf of my family's young master. Zhang Xiao still had good eyesight. From Lin Feng's move just now, he could see that this guy was at least a rank 10 soul master. Although he was wearing a mask, he estimated that Lin Feng was at most 12 or 13 years old. Such a young soul master's identity was definitely not simple. In addition, his family's young master was in the wrong first. So Zhang Xiao cleverly apologized. Because Lin Hai's shout was a bit loud, there was already a circle of onlookers at the entrance of the town. After hearing Lin Hai's identity and Zhang Xiao's name, there were some onlookers who were in the know. I know Zhang Xiao. He's a soul grandmaster, but now he's apologizing to a child. How strange. Lin Hai's father, Lin Tao, is even more incredible. He's the city lord of Carrie and also a viscount. His strength is also very strong. This is going to be a good show to watch now. Everyone's discussion entered Lin Feng's ears. It sounded like he was the one in the wrong and not Lin Hai. Lin Feng only smiled at this, then said loudly, Lin Hai has committed 2 crimes. Riding horses is not allowed in the town, but Lin Hai rode a horse into the town. This is the first crime. Conflict is prohibited in the town, but Lin Hai attacked people for no reason. This is the second crime. If apologies were useful, what's the use of laws? There were still laws in the Heaven Do Empire. Even though these laws weren't very effective against the nobles, Lin Feng's words were still effective. At the very least, the surrounding onlookers had changed their opinions and felt that Lin Hai was the one in the wrong. Hearing this, Zhang Xiu's expression turned ugly. He originally thought that an apology would be able to resolve the matter, but Lin Feng's words had turned it into a legal issue. He asked in a low voice, "Who are you? Where's your father? Why do you care who I am? Are you afraid because I have a powerful elder in my family? Or are you going to kill me just because I'm an ordinary person? Are the laws of the Heaven Do Empire like this? Are the nobles human, and ordinary people not human?" Lin Feng's words were ruthless. The nature of the matter had almost reached a political level. If this matter wasn't resolved properly and the news spread, Lin Hai's grandfather might be implicated. "What do you want?" Zhang Xiu's expression darkened. Someone who could say something like this was definitely not an ordinary person. As the captain of the guards of the Carrie City Lord's residence, he had a lot to think about. He even thought that Lin Feng could be someone from the neighboring Barton City, and that his goal was to harm Lin Tao's position as the city lord. Very simple. "Lin Hai, kneel down and apologize. Apologize to me." Lin Feng didn't have any other thoughts. He just wanted to vent his anger. If he knew what Zhang Xiu was thinking right now, he would probably laugh out loud. This guy's imagination was too good. "What? You actually want me to kneel? I'm going to kill you." Lin Hai raged. "Uncle Zhang, quick! Help me kill him." Lin Hai's thoughts were still clear. He knew that he couldn't beat Lin Feng, so he asked Zhang Xiu to do it. Nonsense! At this moment, Zhang Xiu couldn't care less about seniority. He berated Lin Hai. At this moment, he was sure that Lin Feng was someone from Barton City. He even knew about Lin Hai's character. He provoked him verbally, then forced him to make a move. Then, the matter would blow up. When the matter blew up, Lin Hai's grandfather might be fine, but Lin Tao's position as the city lord would definitely be taken away. Yes, that was it. At this moment, Zhang Xiu felt that he had seen through all of Lin Feng's plans. I, Zhang Xiu, am really too smart to be able to see through such a meticulous chain of plans. At the side, Lin Feng was dumbfounded when he saw Zhang Xiu suddenly laughing. Chapter 20. Make Lin Hai kneel and admit his mistake? That's impossible. Zhang Xiu knew that if he could resolve this peacefully, he would be able to resolve this crisis. If Lin Hai knelt, he would be disgracing the city lord. If word got out, it wouldn't be good for the city lord. He had to think of another way to perfectly resolve this crisis. When the time came, he would tell the city lord everything. He would have made a great contribution. Maybe the city lord would be happy and use his connections to let his son enter the Heaven Do Academy. Lin Hai is of noble status. How can he kneel to a masked person like you? Even if he made a mistake, he should be brought to the court by the law enforcement team. When the time comes, we will accept the punishment. When Zhang Xiu said to bring him to the court, he obviously meant to bring him to the court in Cree City. The judges were his own people. When the time came, wouldn't they have the final say? Hearing this, Lin Feng frowned. He didn't expect the other party to act so shamelessly. He could roughly guess the law and nobility in Douluo's world. If Lin Hai was brought away by the law enforcement team, wouldn't they have the final say in the sentence? Things are going to be a little difficult now. Lin Feng was in a difficult situation and was racking his brains to think of a solution. On the other side, let's rewind time to 2 minutes ago. At the entrance of the town, a carriage with the symbol of Nodding City slowly came to a stop. Soon, a little boy with a unique belt around his waist and a skinny middle-aged man walked down. They were Tang San and the Grandmaster who had rushed to the soul-hunting forest. The belt was the spatial soul tool named the 24 Moonlit Bridges. Although they were in a carriage and were faster than Lin Feng, they were traveling on the main road. With Lin Feng's physique, he could take some shortcuts. In the end, they arrived at almost the same time. Teacher, something seems to have happened at the entrance of the town. Tang San's attention was attracted by the commotion at the entrance of the town. The Grandmaster was the same. The two of them ran over and quickly understood the situation from the surrounding onlookers. At this moment, Lin Feng said something that moved the Grandmaster. Is this how the laws of the Heaven Do Empire work? Only the rich and powerful are human. Are ordinary people not human? At this moment, Lin Feng's small body seemed to grow taller in the master's eyes. He was able to point out the problems with the Heaven Do Empire's laws with a single sentence. This person was not to be underestimated. Tang Xin didn't feel anything about this. He just felt that Zhang Xiu seemed to be bullying Lin Feng. It had to be said that Lin Feng's disguise was very successful. Not only did he wear a mask on his face, but he also deliberately changed his style of clothing. Tang Xin did not recognize him at all. Teacher, this Zhang Xiu is too much of a bully. Looking at him, I don't think the court will punish Lin Hai. Hearing this, the Grandmaster was at a loss for words. In the end, he nodded. Yes, that should be the case. After a pause, he said, but since I've encountered this matter, I have to take care of it. After saying that, the Grandmaster stepped out of the crowd and went straight to Zhang Xiu. Then, he took out a token from his bosom and showed it to Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly bowed. I pay my respects to you, Master. Lin Hai was still in a daze, and Zhang Xiu immediately dragged him along with him. This was a martial spirit palace token with 3 insignias, and there was a blue lightning tyrant dragon engraved on it. This indicated that the owner of the token was a member of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, and he was of high status. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan was the most powerful beast soul clan on the entire continent. They couldn't afford to offend anyone from that clan, let alone the owner of the token. Apologize properly, the Grandmaster whispered into Zhang Xiu's ear. After that, he smiled at Lin Feng before leading Tang San away from the crowd and into the soul-hunting forest. Everyone, including Lin Feng, was dumbfounded by this scene. He didn't expect Tang San and the Grandmaster to appear here. In the instant that he saw Tang San, he held his breath and didn't dare to say anything in fear of being recognized. Only after the two of them left did he heave a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he was smart enough to put on a mask and change his clothes before coming here. Otherwise, he would have been exposed. Speaking of which, the Grandmaster really was a noble person. Even though he didn't know him, he was still willing to lend a helping hand. In reality, if it weren't for the fact that Lin Feng's words had moved the Grandmaster wouldn't have saved him. Instead, he would have taken a detour. This little friend, kneeling down and apologizing is really not a good influence. Why don't you take these 10 gold coins as an apology? After the master left, Zhang Xiu was frightened for a moment, but then he immediately leaned over with a smile. He was only saying this as a final struggle. After all, Barton City had used such a powerful chain of tactics, and they were lucky enough to encounter someone from the Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan. How could someone who could come up with such a plan be bought over with money? Zhang Xiu wasn't the only one thinking this. The spectators all thought the same. In their eyes, Lin Feng definitely wouldn't be bought over with money. However, in the next second, a scene that confused everyone appeared. Lin Feng didn't immediately refuse. Instead, he calmly extended a palm. A palm? What did that mean? Zhang Xiu was stunned and couldn't figure it out. Seeing Zhang Xiu's confused expression, Lin Feng inwardly cursed him for being an idiot. Then he said 50 gold coins. I'll accept your apology. As soon as he said this, everyone's jaws dropped. Their faces were filled with disbelief. What happened to kneeling and apologizing? What happened to having a backbone? Were those righteous words just now all fake? Zhang Xiu was also stunned. He didn't think that Lin Feng would be moved by money. However, 50 gold coins was pretty much all he had. This was the Martial Soul Hall's allowance for a Soul Grandmaster for 5 months. This made Zhang Xiu hesitate. However, when he thought about how he could perfectly resolve this crisis, he knew that the City Lord would reward him greatly in the future. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated. Clenching his teeth, he took out 50 gold coins and placed them in a small bag. Then, he handed it over to Lin Feng. Here are 50 gold coins. Consider it our apology. Lin Feng took it and weighed it in his hand. Then, he smiled. All right, I accept your apology. After saying this, Lin Feng turned around and squeezed through the stunned crowd. He walked out of the town. At first, he walked slowly, but as he pulled away from the crowd, Lin Feng walked faster and faster. When he reached a corner, he immediately ran and disappeared. A few minutes later, when Lin Feng came to an empty forest, he laughed loudly. Haha, isn't this money too easy to come by? Thinking back to the scene just now, he felt like he was in a dream. This was 50 gold coins. 1 gold coin could be exchanged for 100 silver coins, and 1 silver coin could be exchanged for 100 copper coins. With so much money, in the school cafeteria where you could eat for 2 copper coins, Lin Feng could eat for hundreds of years. Ding! Host has undergone a thrilling and exciting adventure. Spiritual power has increased slightly. Experience plus 1,000 nanny. You call this an adventure? Chapter 21. The commotion at the entrance of the town quickly subsided, and the onlookers quickly dispersed. Apart from the people involved and a few people who were following Lin Feng, it was as if nothing had happened. Originally, Lin Feng went to town to see if he could sneak into the forest with a team other than to gather some information. He only needed to leave for a period of time to absorb the soul ring. If that wasn't enough, he could even leave the team and act alone. This way, he could greatly reduce the probability of being discovered by the Martial Soul Hall's patrol team. However, after such a thing happened in town, Lin Feng had no intention of sneaking in with the team. Half an hour later, Lin Feng went around the town and arrived at the western wall. The 10-meter-tall iron fence was like a giant beast in front of him. At this height, even Lin Feng couldn't enter with his bare hands. Of course, Lin Feng wasn't completely unprepared. Did you think he was foolishly happy with the 50 gold coins in the past half an hour? Of course not. Lin Feng was foolishly happy for only 10 minutes. Other than checking out the area, he was making a wooden hook. At this moment, Lin Feng reached the fence. He swung the vine and easily threw it 10 meters high, hanging it on the fence. Lin Feng pulled twice to test the strength. Then, he used his strength and quickly climbed up. Inside the wall were iron spikes that were more than a meter long. Lin Feng carefully put away the wooden hook, then threw it forward with all his might. The wooden hook drew a beautiful arc and accurately hung on the branch of a big tree. Seeing this, Lin Feng smiled and grabbed the vine and swung into the soul-hunting forest. Like a swing, Lin Feng suddenly let go at the lowest point and rolled a few times on the ground to release the force. Then, he shook his hand, and the wooden hook was lifted up by the force of the vine. It fell off the branch. Lin Feng immediately put it away. While looking around vigilantly, he slowly walked into the forest. After entering the soul-hunting forest, Lin Feng's plan was to end the battle as quickly as possible. The information he had read in the library previously was related to soul beasts. His goal was to see which type of soul beast was more suitable for him to hunt. However, in the end, he realized that all of them seemed to be more suitable. The main reason was that his immeasurable flower was strong enough, and its assimilation ability was also very strong. No matter what kind of soul beast it was, it didn't matter if it was a strength type, agility type, or some other type. In any case, after Lin Feng obtained them, he would be able to fuse them into a suitable soul skill. Therefore, Lin Feng's strategy was to kill any soul beast he didn't like to see in order to avoid the danger of being discovered by the enforcers. In the soul-hunting forest, 10-year soul beasts were the most abundant. Lin Feng had only walked for a few hundred meters when he encountered several of them. For example, there were clapping monkeys that liked to clap, spitting frogs that liked to spit, forest wolves that liked to fight in groups, and so on. Facing these 10-year soul beasts, Lin Feng realized that he didn't feel any danger at all. The 3 forest wolves even wanted to eat him. Lin Feng kicked them until they whimpered and quickly ran away. While Lin Feng was walking in, on the other side, Grandmaster and Tang San were also steadily advancing. As they walked, Grandmaster was still teaching Tang San on the spot. All kinds of theories were blurted out, causing Tang San to nod his head repeatedly. The soul-hunting forest was relatively large. Lin Feng walked for 500 meters, but he was still in the outer region. However, he was already close to the central region, and 100-year soul beasts were starting to appear. Lin Feng's luck was pretty good. All the soul beasts he encountered were plant-type, 100-year soul beasts. None of them attacked him, which made him feel a little bored. At this moment, there was a commotion not far ahead. It seemed like someone was hunting soul beasts. After thinking about it, Lin Feng immediately climbed up a big tree and jumped between the tree trunks to rush over. After jumping twice, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. Lin Feng's hair stood on end, causing him to subconsciously dodge to the side. He saw a snake coiled around the tree trunk in front of him and actually spat a mouthful of venom at him. If Lin Feng hadn't dodged quickly enough, he would have been hit. There were two patterns on the snake's body. One was darker in color, while the other was lighter. This meant that it was a 100-year soul beast. Furthermore, it wasn't the type that had just become a 100-year soul beast. It was estimated to be 160 to 170 years old. Snake-type soul beasts, and venomous ones at that, were extremely fast. Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless and was prepared for battle. He wiped his face with his left hand, and the mask instantly melted. Then it turned into a 1.5-meter long, slender spear in his hand. When the 1,000-trickster ruler and the immeasurable flower had just awakened, Lin Feng could only use a small amount of power. This was partly because his soul power was weak, and partly because he wasn't familiar with them yet. But after a few months of practice, Lin Feng's familiarity with his martial soul had greatly increased. Although his soul power rank hadn't increased, it had become much more condensed. The phosphorus snake spat out its tongue and quickly approached Lin Feng, biting him. Lin Feng didn't panic in the face of danger. The moment the phosphorus snake approached, he saw the opportunity and accurately stabbed the snake's weak point with his spear, directly nailing it to the tree trunk. Before dying, the phosphorus snake wanted to spit venom at Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng didn't let down his guard at all. He was constantly on guard and easily dodged it. A minute later, the phosphorus snake finally stopped wriggling and was completely nailed to the tree trunk. Ding! After an exciting battle, the host has killed a 165-year soul beast, the phosphorus snake. Battle experience has increased. Experience points plus 2361. Fighting a 100-year soul beast can give so much experience? Why did I only get a few dozen points when I kicked those 3 wolves away? But he didn't think too much about it. Lin Feng stared at the phosphorus snake. In the next second, a pale yellow ring of light appeared above the phosphorus snake's corpse. It was Lin Feng's first time seeing this soul ring. He was curious and couldn't help but approach it for a moment. He even curiously touched it with his hand. However, the soul ring seemed to be attracted to Lin Feng and quickly rushed towards Lin Feng. But Lin Feng reacted quickly and dodged it. Hey, daring demon ring. Have you become a demon? The phosphorus snake was extremely ugly. Although Lin Feng didn't have any requirements for soul rings, Lin Feng disdained to absorb the soul ring of such an ugly soul beast. This also showed that no matter where you were, appearance was justice. Ignoring the soul ring, Lin Feng continued to walk forward towards the place where the commotion had occurred. Not long later, Lin Feng found out about the situation in front of him. It was a team of soul masters working together to kill a 200-year leopard. This was Lin Feng's first time seeing a battle between soul masters. He felt that it was very novel and carefully observed it from the tree trunk. There were a total of 6 people. 2 were soul grandmasters, and the other 4 were soul masters. Killing this leopard should be to give one of the 4 soul masters a soul ring. The 6 people's cooperation wasn't very good. It could even be said that it was terrible. In addition, the first soul ring of the 2 soul grandmasters was actually a 10-year soul ring. Their strength wasn't very strong, so the battle was very intense and anxious. After watching for a while, Lin Feng felt that he could summarize this battle with 3 words. And that was spicy eyes. Chapter 22. Wow, this group of people was really a pain in the ass. What soul skills missing? What teammates kicking soul beasts to block damage? All kinds of unsightly actions made Lin Feng feel like he was watching kindergarten students fight. When did soul masters become such noobs? Actually, this wasn't because soul masters had become noobs. but because Lin Feng thought too highly of soul masters. In his previous life, Lin Feng had read Douluo's novels. Regardless of whether it was the original or the novel, the soul masters he saw were either elites from academies or experts from empires or sections. These were originally high-end soul masters in the soul master community. What a joke! How could anyone who could come into contact with the main character be weak? In fact, in the large group of soul masters, there were very few who were above rank 30. More than half of them weren't even at rank 30. And in this group of people below rank 30, most of them were commoners. Their families weren't rich, and there were even working students in the village whose soul power levels weren't high when they awakened. Those with good talent could even obtain their first soul ring with the help of teachers in school. If they were unlucky, they would have to spend a lot of time working to earn money and then ask people to help them hunt soul beasts. This would delay their cultivation time and waste their youth. They would never be able to break through rank 30, falling into an endless cycle. The two soul grandmasters in front of him were about 40 years old. They each had a 100-year soul ring and could be considered the standard form of commoner soul masters. There were even some soul grandmasters who only had two 10-year soul rings. They were simply too weak. If they met a powerful 10-year soul beast, they probably wouldn't be able to beat it. Among these 6 people, other than the 2 soul grandmasters that Lin Feng paid attention to, there was one other soul master that Lin Feng took a second look at. There was no other reason except that this guy's first soul ring was a 100-year soul ring, which was rather eye-catching in the crowd. Left side. Left side. Restrain it from me. Good. Beautifully done. In any case, it was a team of 6. Although their coordination was terrible, they still managed to restrain the leopard in the end. Seeing this, Lin Feng shook his head and was about to leave. However, at this moment, the soul grandmaster who had commanded the team spoke up. Boss, the leopard is under control. You can go and kill it. We will protect you while you absorb the soul ring. The boss of this team was the soul master that Lin Feng had taken a second look at. He wasn't very old, about 15 or 16 years old. He would become a soul grandmaster after absorbing the soul ring. From the looks of it, his family was quite wealthy. He probably had hopes of reaching level 30 before the age of 20. But then again, this scene reminded Lin Feng of the soul grandmaster who had shouted at the town entrance. That fellow had also wanted to lead the boss. Although he didn't know how much it would cost to bring people to kill soul beasts, it definitely wouldn't be cheap. Everyone else had a boss in each team, and the stronger teams had 2 bosses at most. The profits had to be redistributed in the end. As for Lin Feng, he felt like he could lead an entire team by himself. The benefits he could reap, TSK, just thinking about it was terrifying. Of course, now was not the time to think about that. He had to obtain his first soul ring first. With that thought, Lin Feng quickly left. Half an hour later, Lin Feng, who had been walking and stopping along the way, had beheaded 3 blind 10-year soul beasts, giving him over 100 experience points. At this moment, Lin Feng also knew that fighting with strong soul beasts would give a lot more experience than fighting with weak ones. However, this wasn't important. The important thing was that he hadn't found a suitable soul beast for himself. Before entering the soul-hunting forest, Lin Feng had thought of casually finding a soul beast to kill and be done with it. However, now that things had come to this, he was worried about his gains and losses. Don't ask. Asking is human nature. Saying one thing, but saying another thing, isn't that normal? Just like some of the big shots in the group chat in his previous life, they would pretend to be cute and cry about being poor when chatting. Who knew that, in the end, not only did they say one thing, but they also said another thing in Beijing and another in Shanghai. Cough, cough. I've digressed. Suddenly, his vision opened up, and Lin Feng came to a small lake. However, in the next second, a lotus flower in the lake attracted Lin Feng's attention. It wasn't an ordinary lotus flower, but a plant-type soul beast. Judging from its size, it shouldn't have reached the 100-year level, and should have the strength of 50 to 60 years. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that this soul beast was very suitable for Lin Feng. As his first soul ring, this was very good. At the same time, Lin Feng first checked if there was any danger in the lake. Sure enough, there wasn't my ass. 100-year level crocodile opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Lin Feng. Fortunately, he was vigilant and quickly dodged. Then, he turned his hand and stabbed with his spear. The crocodile was in pain, but it didn't have the slightest intention of escaping. It endured the damage and continued to bite Lin Feng. However, the result was already decided. Soon, it turned into a ghost under the spear. Ding! After an exciting battle, the host has killed the 187-year soul beast crocodile. Battle experience has increased. Experience points plus 2154 after checking for a while. Lin Feng confirmed that there was no danger in the lake. He reckoned that the lake was the territory of the crocodile just now. Lin Feng waded through the water and came to the side of the lotus flower. Qin Shi wasn't paying attention, so he threw his spear and killed him. After a while, a white soul ring appeared. Lin Feng directly stretched out his hand, and the immeasurable flower appeared and guided it into his body. What does it feel like to absorb a soul ring? Actually, it didn't feel much. It felt as if he was soaking in a hot spring and eating. His whole body was warm. He was originally a little hungry, but suddenly, he wasn't hungry anymore. Quickly coming to the shore, Lin Feng summoned the immeasurable flower again. In the next second, a completely different feeling spread out. A bright white soul ring rose from Lin Feng's feet, slowly rising to the top of his head and then slowly falling down. This cycle repeated over and over again. Other than that, Lin Feng felt that his physical fitness had increased by about 30%. That's right, there was also a soul skill. Lin Feng immediately closed his eyes and sensed it. A few seconds later, he suddenly shouted, "First soul skill, life bloom." In front of Lin Feng, the illusory image of a snow-white lotus flower appeared. Then, as if it was in full bloom, it slowly bloomed and white light lingered. For a moment, a strange life force pervaded the air within a 10-meter radius, and the air became sweeter. Blue-silver grass began to grow wildly, and wildflowers bloomed. The water in the lake became much clearer. Wait a minute. Why is it white light? Not only did the soul skill emit white light, but under careful observation, Lin Feng even discovered that a petal of the immeasurable flower had turned white. What did this mean? Could it be that his martial soul could evolve? The system didn't give any explanation, so Lin Feng could only guess at the moment. However, what surprised Lin Feng was that his first soul skill was actually an area of effect support skill. In terms of effect, it was almost 5 times better than when Lin Feng used his martial soul alone. Chapter 23. What kind of concept was 5 times? Back in the Holy Soul Village, he had tested how strong his life force was. He had caught a rabbit and cut a small wound on its body. Under the spurt of life force, the wound healed in less than half a minute. But now, 5 times the effect. Wouldn't the wound heal in a few seconds? Most importantly, it didn't consume much soul power. With Lin Feng's current soul power, he could maintain it for about 5 minutes if he continued to release it. That was 5 minutes. If it was a team battle, teammates would recover very quickly. It was almost equivalent to teammates being invincible for 5 minutes. This could be said to be a godly skill. One had to know that most support-type soul masters only supported a single person. Even if they could buff a group, the effect wouldn't be very strong. But Lin Feng's was actually so strong. It was really shocking. And most importantly, this was only the effect of a 10-year soul ring. What if it was a 100-year, 1,000-year, or 10,000-year soul ring? Lin Feng could use experience to increase the age of his soul ring. Thinking about it, Lin Feng looked at his character panel. Name: Lin Feng Martial Soul, 1000 Trickster Ruler, Immeasurable Flower Soul Power. Rank 11, plus Soul Ring, Lotus 62, plus Experience. 7462470,000 experience points were the result of his 3 months of hard work. A few thousand of them were obtained after entering the soul-hunting forest. After sensing it, Lin Feng realized that strengthening a soul ring under 100-year only required 10 experience points. Without hesitation, Lin Feng immediately used 370 experience points to strengthen the soul ring to a 99-year soul ring. Why didn't he strengthen it directly to a 100-year soul ring? Because the system said that an additional 10,000 experience points were needed to increase the age of the soul ring. But Lin Feng didn't care and directly spent the 10,000 experience points. In the next second, Lin Feng's first soul ring changed from a 99-year soul ring to a 100-year soul ring. The color also changed from dark white to yellow. The name of the soul ring changed from a lotus to a snow lotus. At this time, strengthening the soul ring once required 100 experience points. But Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry to strengthen it. Instead, he felt the soul power requirement. It only costs 500 EXP per use. If he were to strengthen the soul ring, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to upgrade it to a 1,000-year soul ring with the remaining 60,000 experience points. That way, he wouldn't be able to produce a qualitative change in his strength, so he might as well strengthen his level. Furthermore, Lin Feng wanted to see if the immeasurable flower's color would change after he obtained his second soul ring. With that thought in mind, Lin Feng immediately spent 4,500 experience points to upgrade his soul power from rank 11 to rank 20. At this moment, Lin Feng could obtain another soul ring. His first soul skill's support type ability was already very powerful, so Lin Feng decided to find an attack type or control type soul skill for his second soul ring. Furthermore, it was best for soul beasts to be older than the average soul beast. Previously, Lin Feng had thought that strengthening soul rings didn't require much experience, but now it seemed that it was a huge drain. After 100 years, it would cost 100 experience points to strengthen the equipment. How extravagant! Originally, Lin Feng wanted to give the 1,000G ruler a soul ring, and then slowly strengthen it in the future. Now that he thought about it, how rich did he have to be to dare to have such thoughts? In the future, when he was strong enough, wouldn't it be better to give his second martial soul a 100,000-year soul ring? Right now, giving him a low-level soul ring was simply an idiot's action. It was purely a waste of experience points. The rank 20 Lin Feng's strength was simply heaven and earth turning on its head compared to before. With the addition of his 100-year soul ring and his soul power rank, Lin Feng's physical fitness had almost doubled. Right, there was also his soul skill. Because his soul ring had been upgraded to a 100-year soul ring, Lin Feng's soul skill had also been strengthened. Not only had its healing effects doubled, its range had also increased to 20 meters. In addition, the soul skill had an additional function. When a soul master was illuminated by light, their soul power recovery speed would increase by 10%. Right, although the 1,000G ruler didn't have an additional soul ring, it still received an upgrade. Previously, the reason why Lin Feng always liked to transform into a spear to fight, and an extremely slender one at that, was because he didn't have enough soul power, so he couldn't transform it into a bigger one. But now it was different. Basically, he could transform into any weapon, and its hardness had also increased. In the past, Lin Feng could even fight against a soul grandmaster. Now, saying that he could defeat a rank 40 soul ancestor was a bit too arrogant. But if it was a soul elder, Lin Feng felt that he should be able to beat him. In any case, Tang San was able to fight back and forth with the rank 30 Dai Mubai when he was over rank 20. If Lin Feng couldn't even beat a soul elder at rank 20, then he might as well go back to the Holy Soul Village and plant sweet potatoes. Without thinking too much, Lin Feng's strength had increased, and his confidence had also increased. In the past, when he was walking in the soul-hunting forest, he was still very vigilant and looked after two steps. After all, other than paying attention to the danger brought by the soul beasts, Lin Feng was also afraid of the Martial Spirit Hall's patrol team. That was a patrol team with a soul elder. If Lin Feng met them, he could only run. But now it was different. If he met the patrol team, he could greet them first, then run. Looking for soul beasts was a time-consuming and physical activity. Although it was difficult to find a suitable soul beast, it would usually be found within 1 or 2 hours. Finding a suitable 100-year soul beast was actually easy. As long as you were strong enough, you could find one in half a day. And now, What Lin Feng wanted to find was a suitable soul beast that was more than 600 years old and less than 1,000 years old. Within this range, the higher the age, the better. And the range was in the middle of the soul-hunting forest, not the depths or periphery. Needless to say, there were no soul beasts of this age in the periphery. But in the depths, there was a possibility of encountering 1,000-year soul beasts, and there were even 10,000-year soul beasts. Lin Feng couldn't beat them, so he could only wander around the central region. Soon, half a day passed, and the sky gradually darkened. During this time, Lin Feng didn't find a single suitable soul beast other than gaining over 20,000 experience points from fighting soul beasts. Alright, Lin Feng didn't kill the soul beasts when he fought them. After all, fighting gave him experience points. If he didn't kill them, he could fight them again next time. How could he bear to kill such a good experience baby? But there was one bad thing. Lin Feng realized that the more he fought with soul beasts, the less experience he gained. At the beginning, he had over 2,000 experience points. Later on, it was only over 1,000. Gradually, it was reduced to just over 1,000. Lin Feng knew the reason for this. Every time he fought, his understanding of soul beasts deepened. Today was still the first day, and he hadn't seen many soul beasts yet. He reckoned that the more he fought, the less experience he would gain. But there was another important reason. Lin Feng's luck wasn't very good. He only met some 200-year soul beasts in the afternoon and didn't meet any strong ones. Otherwise, fighting those 500-year soul beasts would have given him a lot more experience points. After all, the strength of the soul beast was also an important factor in the amount of experience points. Chapter 24. In the afternoon, while Lin Feng was looking for soul beasts, he was also practicing his first soul skill. Lin Feng's goal for practicing wasn't to increase the speed of his soul skill's release, but to completely control it. Life Bloom. This was the name Lin Feng came up with himself. Life force bloomed like a flower. Wasn't it very appropriate? But when it was released, it would bloom on its own, and all the surrounding creatures would be affected, regardless of whether they were friend or foe. On the surface, it was very strong, but such a soul skill felt very rigid, as if it was a model. Lin Feng's goal for practicing was to control it as he wished. Once the soul skill was released, he could strengthen whoever he wanted within range, and he could strengthen as many as he wanted. The strength and speed of the soul skill had to be finely controlled. Lin Feng felt that he could only truly master this soul skill if he was able to do so. This was a difficult task, but it wouldn't be too ridiculous. After all, it was already his, and he just had to control it. He didn't say that he could control it in a day, but in a month. Lin Feng was confident that he could achieve his goal in a month. Lin Feng sat on the trunk of a large tree, the immeasurable flower in his right hand spinning, emitting a soul-power deterrence that made some small insects not dare to approach. He looked into the depths of the forest, silently observing. Soul beasts were also differentiated by day and night. Some liked to come out during the day, while others liked to come out at night. Lin Feng wanted to find a control-type or attack-type soul beast, and there were still many choices at night, such as the night saber panther, lantern flower, and so on. It was just night time, and Lin Feng wouldn't waste such a good opportunity. Taking out dry rations and water after eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lin Feng took advantage of the night to attack again. At the same time, the Grandmaster and Tang Sin searched for half a day, but they didn't find the soul beast they wanted. The two of them found a depression and prepared to spend the night in the forest. It had to be said that Grandmaster was very responsible as a teacher. After entering the forest, he didn't stop talking and explained to Tang San about soul beasts at all times. Tang San was smart. In this kind of situation where he practiced and explained at the same time, he absorbed almost all the knowledge explained by the master into his mind. Just as the Grandmaster was explaining to Tang San the basics of soul master cultivation, Luo Sanpao, who had been standing guard all this time, suddenly shouted. In the bushes beside the two of them, there were more than 10 green dots of light slowly approaching them. Those were the eyes of the wolves. It's a nether wolf, Grandmaster said in a deep voice, but there was no trace of panic in his tone. Xiao San, stay here and don't move around. After saying those words, The Grandmaster walked over to Luo Sanpeo's side. His body trembled, and 2 yellow soul rings appeared on his body. Then he shouted solemnly, "Fart like thunder, heaven-shattering, earth-splitting triple cannon." In the next second, a yellow soul ring appeared on Luo Sanpeo's body. Following that, a thunderous explosion erupted. Right at this moment, Lin Feng's ears twitched on a tree more than 200 meters away from here. Is there a situation? Lin Feng had met a few people in the forest in the afternoon, but it was already nighttime. Were there still people working overtime? With a trace of curiosity, Lin Feng immediately rushed over to the Grandmaster's side. It was only a distance of 200 meters. Soon, Lin Feng arrived in front of him. Xiao San and the Grandmaster? Lin Feng was stunned. He didn't expect to meet these 2 people. They also ran to the middle of the forest. In fact, Tang San and the Grandmaster were still in the outer area, but they were closer to the middle. As for Lin Feng, he could roughly tell where he was during the day, but at night, his vision was limited, so it was difficult for him to tell where he was. As he walked, he arrived at the outer area and was attracted by the commotion caused by Luo Sanpao. Meeting these 2 people could be considered a good thing. Lin Feng remembered that in the original work, the Grandmaster was poisoned. Although he was fine in the end, he had to recuperate for a period of time. Now that Lin Feng was here, he could at least guarantee that they wouldn't be injured. Or to put it more simply, didn't Tang San come here to obtain a soul ring? It seemed that his first soul ring was obtained from the mandala snake. In terms of age, it was very close to the limit of a first soul ring. It was 423 years, so it should be a mandala snake that was almost 400 years old. Lin Feng directly went to the nearby area to find a 400-year-old snake and throw it to them. Just as he had this thought, a rustling sound came from the bushes not far to the east. This sound wasn't soft, and Lin Feng heard it. Of course, Tang San and the Grandmaster also heard it. Soon, the rustling sound came closer, and the 3 of them clearly saw the source of the sound. The mandala snake. "Run!" The Grandmaster immediately shouted, telling Tang San to run. At the same time, his soul ring lit up, and he shouted, "Fart like thunder, heaven-splitting, earth-splitting Luo Sanpao." He knew that this mandala snake must have been attracted by Luo Sanpeo's loud noise. Encountering a 400-year-old mandala snake in the outer area of the soul-hunting forest was truly unlucky. Luo Sanpeo's attack was loud as thunder. Although the mandala snake was flipped over, it didn't cause any damage. Hiss hiss, the mandala snake spat out its tongue and quickly chased after the 2. At this moment, Lin Feng's expression was a bit interesting. He was just thinking of going out to catch a mandala snake. He didn't think that his luck would be so good that the other party would directly deliver it to him. With that thought, Lin Feng's left hand clenched slightly, and the 1,000 trickery ruler instantly appeared. Then, it turned into 2 streaks of light. One flew to Lin Feng's face and turned into a mask. As for the other, it transformed into a spear in his hand. In the past, the spear was incomparably slender. Now that he had more soul power, he could willfully split it into 2 parts. With the spear in hand, Lin Feng was like a cheetah as he rushed towards the mandala snake. At this moment, Tang San and the Grandmaster were both running for their lives. The mandala snake was like a spring, bending and bouncing on the ground, quickly closing the distance between the 2. "Sanpao, block it!" Seeing the mandala snake getting closer and closer, the Grandmaster became anxious. However, Luo Sanpao wasn't a match for the mandala snake at all. In a single exchange, he was turned into a streak of light and entered the Grandmaster's body. At this point, the Grandmaster was almost in despair. On the other hand, Tang San didn't panic too much. Although the mandala snake was extremely fast and poisonous, with his purple demon eyes, he could clearly see its movements. Tang San felt that he could kill this soul beast. However, at this moment, Lin Feng was like a god descending from the heavens as he suddenly fell from a large tree. The spear in his hand was smashed from top to bottom. Because the speed was too fast, the spear's afterimage turned into a white curtain. Clang! With a crisp sound, Lin Feng's spear accurately smashed an inch behind the snake's head. In the next second, the mandala snake was directly beaten to the ground and fainted. Its body kept swaying unconsciously, and it was very horrifying. Beside him, Lin Feng stood there with the spear in his hand, looking extraordinarily mighty. The scene suddenly quieted down. Chapter 25. Thank you for your help this afternoon. Lin Feng's slightly hoarse voice came out of his mouth. After saying that, he turned and left. Lin Feng deliberately held back his strength at the end and didn't hit the snake's head. His goal was to beat the snake half to death and then let Xiao San absorb it. Otherwise, if he used his full strength, the snake's head would have exploded. Wait! Lin Feng was about to leave, but the master hurriedly urged him to stay. He actually wanted to talk to Lin Feng at noon, but the situation didn't allow it. Furthermore, he had Tang San with him, so he didn't bother. Now that they met again, and the other party had even saved his life, he definitely wanted to repay the favor. However, Lin Feng didn't stop at all and quickly ran into the depths of the forest. I still don't know your name. The master continued to shout in the direction Lin Feng left. When Lin Feng heard this question, he thought for a moment and replied, "Just call me Thanos." After that, Lin Feng really left. There was no need to watch what happened after that. The master wasn't stupid. The snake wasn't dead yet, so the soul ring must have been absorbed by Tang San. Just as Lin Feng thought, the master was stunned when he heard the name Thanos. He immediately said to Tang San, "Xiao San, quick! While that snake is still alive, go and kill it. Its soul ring is the most suitable one for you right now." Tang San was stunned, but he still killed the snake as he was told. While killing the snake, he also asked, "Teacher, my martial soul is blue silvergrass. Will this snake's soul ring conflict with my martial soul?" The master said confidently, "Among the 10 core competencies of my martial soul, there's one called martial soul mimicry theory. It talks about this point. Plant-type martial souls don't necessarily have to absorb the soul rings of plant-type soul beasts, and beast martial souls can absorb the soul rings of plant-type soul beasts. Under certain circumstances, the two martial souls can absorb each other. Your blue-silver grass is very tolerant, so absorbing this martial soul won't be a problem. Furthermore, this soul ring is nearing the age limit of your first soul ring, so it's very suitable for you." Upon hearing this, Tang San began to absorb the soul ring as soon as it appeared. On the side, the master came to the front of the mandala snake and looked at the wound, thinking about Lin Feng's identity. Although Lin Feng had purposely made his voice hoarse, the master was able to tell that Lin Feng had done it on purpose. The master guessed that this white-masked man should be around 12 or 13 years old. Lin Feng had grown a little taller after absorbing the soul ring. In addition, Lin Feng was already a little taller than his peers, so the master had misjudged his age. According to the analysis of the depth of the mandala snake's wound, his strength should be that of a soul grandmaster and an extremely powerful soul warrior. If his martial soul wasn't a powerful beast martial soul, then it should be that spear. Otherwise, his attack power wouldn't be so high. Also, from the words he said at noon and his identity of coming to the soul-hunting forest alone, he couldn't rule out the possibility that he had someone following him. But even so, the master could come to a conclusion based on the above information. Lin Feng should be a super genius from a large sect or family. After all, what other purpose could he have for coming to the soul-hunting forest alone? Wasn't it just to advance? This meant that Lin Feng should be rank 30 at the moment. A 12 or 13-year-old rank 30 soul master, he was definitely a super genius. His future achievements wouldn't be low. At the very least, he would be a soul Douluo, and there was even hope for a titled Douluo. The master was astonished by Lin Feng's genius, and so was Tang San, who was currently absorbing the soul ring. Tang San could see that Lin Feng wasn't very old, but he had such a strong strength that he could defeat a nearly 400-year-old mandala snake in one strike. The masked man who suddenly appeared stunned Tang San. At this moment, he suddenly remembered Feng Ge's words from before. "There is always someone better than you." At that time, Tang Sen hadn't comprehended the essence of this sentence. Even when he met the master later, he only felt that the master was about the same as Feng Ge, and that he wasn't much stronger than Feng Ge. Only now did Tang Sen deeply realize the true meaning of this sentence. Lin Feng didn't know that the master and Xiao San were astonished in their hearts. At this moment, he was fighting with a shadow leopard. After leaving the master and the others, Lin Feng mindlessly ran towards the depths of the forest. On the way, he encountered this shadow leopard that was hunting for food. This leopard wasn't weak. From the bright black stripes on its body, it should have the strength of over 900 years, close to a 1,000-year soul beast. Previously, he didn't pay much attention to it, but as he fought, Lin Feng discovered that this leopard was surprisingly resistant to beatings. It turned out that it was a soul beast close to 1,000 years. Soul elders could basically win against soul beasts under 1,000 years. Lin Feng was able to suppress this leopard and even play around with it. There was no doubt that he had the strength of a soul elder. When a soul elder faced a soul beast that had just entered the 1,000-year level, although they couldn't beat it, they could still barely contend with it, let alone keep their lives. As for soul beasts over 2,000 years old, it was better to run when you met one. Even if it was a 1,500-year soul beast, if you weren't a high-level soul elder, it was still better to run. From this, it could be seen how much the 1,000-year threshold increased a soul beast's strength. Fierce. Who told you to be fierce to me? I'll beat you to death. The 1,000-trickery ruler transformed into a long staff, and Lin Feng grabbed it and beat it while muttering. Originally, Lin Feng's thoughts were very simple. He just wanted to spar with his shadow leopard and get some experience. But as he fought, he realized that this soul ring was more suitable for him. It was an attack-type soul ring, and it was even over 900 years old. TSK, the more I look at it, the more suitable it is. The word danger gradually appeared above the shadow leopard's head in capital letters. With that thought, Lin Feng immediately transformed the staff into a knife. After twirling the knife around, he directly chopped at the shadow leopard that was already exhausted. As if it sensed a life and death crisis, the shadow leopard's body emitted a deep yellow light. In the next second, its body actually turned translucent, and its speed suddenly increased by a lot. Lin Feng's knife actually hit empty air. You actually want to run? My soul ring, where are you going? After the shadow leopard dodged this attack, it immediately ran back. Lin Feng shouted in a low voice and hurriedly followed. However, the shadow leopard's speed increased greatly. Most importantly, its body was still translucent black. In this pitch-black night, Lin Feng had a very difficult time chasing after it. Just like this, Lin Feng ran a few hundred meters while chasing and escaping. Suddenly, the fleeing shadow leopard in front of him seemed to be blocked by something, and it let out a low roar of fear. Soon, Lin Feng saw the scene in front of him. It turned out that the few large trees in front of him were full of spider webs. The shadow leopard was running too fast, so it bumped into them and got entangled. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng wasn't surprised at all. Instead, he was instantly on high alert.